Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good people at the Roto Street Journal, acting as your lead blocker to fantasy glory, paving your way to fantasy excellence, making all your football-related fantasies come true. I'm your host, Nat the Truth Jones, coming at you on a Wednesday. What? Yeah, Wednesday. Coming at you on a Wednesday for what's going to be a pretty spectacular show, I think. We're doing our mid-season, or at least roughly close to mid-season review, spectacular, extravaganza, whatever you want to call it. I'm mostly going to be facilitating between two of the biggest brains currently employed by the Roto Street Journal. Of course, we're talking about MOH, Mo himself, and the Wolf of Roto Street. I haven't been on the air with Mo in a while, but the Wolf I see absolutely constantly. You guys ready for this?
Oh, yeah. Ready to dive in. I think it's an awesome exercise, too. Just kind of like the halftime of the fantasy season. Good time to pause, reflect, regroup the fantasy locker room, kind of reflect on what's gone well, what hasn't, but then more importantly, project what's going to happen moving forward. Because I know a lot of you out there is like, I don't really care about the midseason awards, whatever. Just tell me who I need to be playing for the rest of the season. And we will certainly be focusing the majority of the time on that. But it is good to at least take away some of these lessons, some of the messages that we've been learning for the season to then project those second half breakouts and whatnot. So I love doing this. We haven't really done this in a long time. So I'm super excited to dive in. And like you said, I don't think I've fired one up with Mo all season yet after seeing you at least once a week, if not multiple times a week all summer, Mo. So I'm pumped to be back with you. I'm pumped to kind of dive into this with you. It's good to be back on the air with you, brother.
Oh, yeah. It's the first time I've been back with you guys since August. And the mind meld of just having the same takes after talking with each other like every single day of the week from March to August about best ball and drafting. It's interesting to see where we've diverged and what we've thought about this season after not connecting for, what has it been, like 2 months, 3 months? So, yeah, this is going to be fun.
Yeah, and you say who cares about the awards? Well, don't sleep on the pageantry of a good fantasy football award show. Like seriously, this is going to be hot. And we're going to start off with 2024. This is just fill in the blank question. Although I'm sure this is going to be probably more than a one-word answer if I know either of you guys. 2024, the year of the blank. Wolf, it's your company. I give you the first crack at it.
I'll dive right in. And I got to say, it's the year of the running back return. The bell cow backs are coming back out of the caves. It was all preseason, zero running back. All you got to do is load up on wide receivers. This is the year. We know that running backs always get hurt, and you have so much more safety with wide receivers. And then you look so far this year. Out of the top 25 flex scorers in half PPR, 15 of them are running backs. Out of the top 10, 7 of them are running backs. And you should look at the injuries across the league. And I think Mo's going to cover that in just a second in terms of what else we could consider this to the year of. It's brutal, and it's not really at the running back position. Sure, we've lost Pacheco. We've lost some big names, no doubt about it. But it has definitely been far more impactful at other positions, too. So this is the year. If you took Saquon Barkley, if you took Derrick Henry, you're cruising right now. And it's just wild to see how the fantasy landscape, I think, greatly over-pivoted, especially when you consider best ball, where Derrick Henry was like a mid-third rounder, and people were saying that's a bad value. And you look back, it's like, oh, my God, how were we thinking these things? So, to me, this is the year of the running back return. Bell cows are back, baby.
Mo?
Yeah, this is the year of draft a good wide receiver, and then you don't win any money. It's just been an absolute nightmare at wide receiver. I have been personally afflicted by this with my heavy bags of Rashid Shaheed and Nico Collins and my fair amount of Chris Godwin. But yeah, it's just to draft a good receiver and they're down for the year or an extended period of time at a minimum. Malik Neighbors, multiple games missed. DK Metcalf about to have multiple games missed. Cooper Kupp basically an IR stint, Nico Collins an IR stint, Godwin, Shaheed down for the year. It's just like all of the guys who are setting up to be smash successes at cost are just all going down for the year or just missing multiple games. So it's just it looks good on paper in week 3, and by week 7 you're just in shambles. I mean, Personally, I've got multiple teams with multiple of those guys on them. So, but I mean, no one wants to hear about my teams, but I know that a lot of people can personally relate to this feeling of just like being so fired up about your roster, fired up about your team, and looking like you just have the most elite wide receiving core possible. And a month later, you're wondering if you should start Jalen McMillan or what you need to be doing on the waiver wire. People are fighting on the waiver wire for Sterling Shepard at this point. I mean, it's the corpse of Sterling Shepard in Tampa Bay, and it's like a legitimate waiver pickup in 12 and 14 team leagues. So yeah, it's just a complete nightmare if you thought you were going to have fun, because it's been taken away from you rather quickly.
Yeah, and how about let's not sleep on the fact you listed off all these guys that have been injured. How about CeeDee Lamb, who a lot of people had at the very top of the line? He's healthy as a horse. He's the wide receiver 16. Tyreek Hill, also healthy, not playable, literally.
He got to it.
Yeah, well, he got to it, right. Oh, I mean, look, I had Jaden Waddle was supposed to really do a lot for me. So, I had guys first week in my league that had Nico Collins and Cooper Kupp. You're just like, well, this is going to be the greatest receiving core anybody's ever seen. And it's like, they've scored 0 points between them in like the last 4 weeks. It's crazy. I also would have said something about running backs or bell cow if I were filling in that blank. But,
I mean, a lot of people, you could even toss out like the no tight end here, other than maybe Brock Bowers and George Kittle.
Maybe.
There's really been nothing at tight end either. But the no fun things at wide receiver, that's certainly everybody can kind of resonate with that one. I just lost Chris Godwin in every league. I had 7 of 8 leagues. Chris Godwin I still haven't got over it. I'm still sick. It is brutal.
You shouldn't get over it. I'm going to talk. I have him on my board a little later in the podcast when we talk about wide receivers specifically. Yeah. Let's get into the no fun aspect of this, because a big part of the no fun. Or would you say we've already covered the injury aspect?
Yeah,
and we can move on to our fantasy MVPs.
Yeah,
okay.
We can move, unless you had something else you wanted to dive on into. Truth.
No. I mean, there's a lot of injuries, and a lot of them not to running backs, like you said, Pacheco, McCaffrey, but he's never even played. So yeah, I think we covered. All right, let's get into MVP winners. Who's the biggest threat moving forward? Who do you got, Mo, for your fantasy MVP at quarterback right now?
Yeah, if we did this show 72 hours ago, I would have arguably been Baker Mayfield. But he's just like, his outlook down the stretch is to zero. And I really think with Mayfield out of the picture, I really think there's only 2 clear answers to this. I think you can make the case for both Lamar Jackson and Jaden Daniels. And I think the only contender down the line is whoever you say isn't the MVP. So if you pick Lamar, I think the only legitimate contender is Daniels, and the other way around. It's just that they're both, you take away Daniels' one drive. He played one drive last week and went for almost 5 fantasy points on a single drive. I mean, he ripped off that 42 yarder, I believe it was. But I mean, both of them are going to push for 25 fantasy points a game. It's just absolutely ridiculous what these guys are doing. Lamar Jackson pushing for a 3rd MVP award, very clearly the favorite in my eyes, both fantasy wise and the NFL, the MVP. I mean, I saw a stat today. He has, it's like a list of guys who've thrown for 5 touchdowns and 0 interceptions, and on multiple occasions, or I think it's 3 times. And Lamar's done it like 3 or 4 times in 50 games, and everyone else on the list is like in the 200s of games. Like it's just ridiculous what this guy is doing. He's doing it on the ground. He's doing it through the air, and Daniel's just really doing the same. So I think it's pretty clearly those 2 guys.
Wolf, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you're nailing it right there, Mo. I do think with Lamar, it's so funny, the running back, all the criticism this guy got for so long, but I don't think it's even close to a fluke. 1, because we all know how talented he is, but 2, how much this defense has regressed without Mike McDonald, with all the talent they lost. So the 25 fantasy points per game, the best at the position right now, and I don't see that changing. That was the big issue with them last year. They'd get up huge. I think it was a stat where they only trailed for like 3 total minutes in the second half of games Lamar Jackson started last year, or something crazy like that. But that's not the case. They're in much more aggressive shootout style games. Year 2 of the Monken offense also taking that step. So it's clearly Lamar Jackson to me. I did think the Baker Mayfield call out, though, like if I was going to rank just a first half of the season, I think it's a great one. He's actually advanced more teams right now in best ball. 38.9% of teams with Baker Mayfield are advancing in Best Ball Mania compared to 33.5% for Lamar Jackson. If you look at one of the top scoring teams out there, he has Mayfield and Jaden Daniels on his team. 159 points have been added by Mayfield and just 28 for Daniels. I don't think anybody would expect that. And I have a team with Lamar and Baker, and 93 points for Lamar, 107 for Baker Mayfield. He has been legitimately better than those guys. Now, I know in your season managed leagues, a lot of you guys probably weren't starting Mayfield for some of these big blowups, so it's not quite as valuable as he's been to you best ballers who just get the points no matter what. It has been tricky to toss him in lineups. He had that one dud as well. But ultimately, yeah, Mayfield has been by far the best value, the biggest surprise. But I do think it comes down to either Lamar or Jaden Daniels moving forward. I will, though, as a stand of this man for fantasy, I got to say Josh Allen. I mean, how many times have we seen this guy?
That's where I was going.
Exactly. I didn't mean to steal your thunder
No,
there.
it's okay.
But ultimately, I know you cited this stat multiple times over the summer, Mo, in terms of like over the last 4 seasons, 4 times in a row, he has like top 10 all-time seasons, not just top 10 finishes, but top 10 all-time finishes. Amari Cooper, first week in, we'll talk about him more in a little bit, but walks right into a touchdown, probably opening this offense quite a bit more as a whole. So I think Josh Allen, if anybody came out of nowhere, he could really threaten for that fantasy QB come the stretch run.
So I had to take it a little bit of a step far. We were all in the same category. I have Allen or Lamar. Obviously, you got to give Daniels his respect. He's my fantasy quarterback. I got him for like nothing in the last round. So obviously, I want it to be him. But when I look at it, you say, could someone come out of nowhere and win it? I mean, if Allen won it, he wouldn't be coming out of nowhere. The guy averages like 23 points a game. I think he's maybe the QB4 right now. He's circling. He's in the conversation. I would probably go Lamar right now. But if you, if I had to gun to my head who's going to finish with more fantasy points this season, I'll bet it's Allen over Daniels.
Yeah, I think that's a solid prediction, guys. We're going to move on to the running back position. You guys are getting your questions on in. We'll love to answer those all when we wrap up the content. Just another pump up for the thumbs up button, the heart button on Twitter. If you're enjoying it, it really does help us get out to more people. We've had thousands of people live with us for multiple streams, and we'd love to help you guys, and you guys help us out too by helping us with that quick, easy, free way. Hit that thumbs up button. It would mean the world. Thank you guys so much. To the running backs.
All right, so my guess would be going into this that we're going to have a really obvious clean sweep amongst the three of us on who we think the running back MVP is. But, I've been wrong before. Wolf, who's your fantasy running back MVP? Or do I even need to
I think we all know who the winner is, so I'll just toss out like a handful of other names that could contend with this man by the end of the season that warrant some consideration. On a per-game basis, Kenneth Walker, right around 20 half PPR points per game. Saquon Barkley, crushing it with over 20 fantasy points per game. Surprisingly, Joe Mixon, going around 4 or 5 in a lot of fantasy drafts, is actually second right now in points per game. And then if you look at only the 3 games that he truly actually played, he has the most fantasy points per game on the season, like 25 or more in all the games he's made it through the full time here. So Mixon's absolutely ripping, but I think you're alluding to the guy that we all know can and should be considered the fantasy MVP, Mr. Derrick Henry. There's no
that is who I was subtly implying.
It's
insane. And I'm going to go out. I'll bet you Mo says the same thing.
This summer I highlighted him as the one guy who could like tier jump into like the elite running back tier. And I said he was going to do that on the back of 20 touchdowns. I did not anticipate that he would be pacing to break the single season rushing record as well as being pacing for 20 plus touchdowns. So he's just blowing everything out of the water. It's just absolutely ridiculous what he's been able to do so far this season. I wish I had more of them in my best ball drafts and everything, but
yeah, sure.
It is what it is. And my other sneaky shot was going to be Joe Mixon, just an elite workload in a really, really high-end offense. So I really do think he is going to make a big difference down the stretch. I was personally really worried about how he would come back from that high ankle sprain. I mean, 28-year-old running back, we've seen them be robbed of their efficiency before, and he just doesn't care about that high ankle sprain. He's back and operating like nothing happened. So if you've got Joe Mixon on your team, I think you can be pretty confident in having just a consistent top 10 guy moving forward.
Well, let's be real about this, guys. Barring injury, nobody is going to catch this guy.
No.
You throw out Kenneth Walker, you throw out some of these other guys. Yeah, they're having good seasons. If you look at his game log, it is just sick. Like last week was the first week of the season that he didn't score. He ran for 169 yards on 15 carries. It's 11 plus yards a carry. Didn't manage to put it in. I think he did get one in the air.
Yeah,
right?
through the air.
Touchdown. Yeah. First one all year. He hasn't had a rushing touchdown. He still went 11 plus a carry. It's ridiculous. The guy is unbelievable. He's a staple in the Roto Street Journal Nutcracker set moving forward. All right,
Yeah.
let's go to wide receivers.
His pace, by the way, Truth, I think it's 2,100 yards rushing and 26 touchdowns as of right now.
That's right, which is like makes LaDainian Tomlinson
pretty good.
Numbers look kind of like not that impressive.
He looks like, I mean, he doesn't look like, he looks faster than I've ever seen the guy too. Like some of these breakaway runs, it's not even just vintage Henry. It's the best Henry.
At the same time, he looks bigger too.
Yeah, it's terrifying, but he is just such a seamless fit. We all knew he'd be a good fit, but like it's insane. It's so fun to watch. I just wish I had more of him, like Mo said. That's the only reason it's not like a. I don't know why we don't. Like you said, Truth. He's been an RSJ staple year in and year out, and I like the guy going into the Raven situation, but it's just so obvious. Like, how did we not load up on Henry more? He's been so good.
We thought that he would be great. We talked about this in the preseason. I actively went after him in my auction. Somebody outbid me. I went pretty high. He went higher. Looking back on it, I'm like, I'm crazy. I should have gone higher than that. I really did believe in the guy. This has exceeded even what I thought was going to happen, but I did think he was going to be great. But I mean, this is I think beyond anyone's expectations. I mean, and he's not known for getting hurt all the time. I mean, there's a good chance the guy's going to finish the season and just be a complete badass. And with him, Baltimore might be really tough to beat. Yeah. All right, let's talk wide receivers. We talked a little bit about this, and I'll tell you just starting off. I found this to be the hardest one to declare my MVP for, and it's just because it's been like a game of whack-a-mole. I will just say there was a time I would have said it was Nico Collins. Obviously, that's not the case anymore. And honestly, before last week, I would have said Chris Godwin. Crazy as that sounds, but we're not going to see him again. And so I'm interested to know who you guys picked. I was back and forth on a couple guys, but they've all got their shortcomings. What do you think, Wolf?
It is really tough because, you just named it. And Mo said in his take of the year of the no fun at wide receivers, it would have been Rashee Rice when the season kicked off, would have been Nico Collins as we got to like week 4, probably would have been Chris Godwin as we got to week 7, and they all keep getting knocked out. So it is really tricky to name one. You could just go with whoever the point leader is at the position, and that is Jamar Chase now.
Jamar, right.
And so he's killing it. I do think, though, you had to take a first-round pick on him, and he's playing well, but he's not absolutely blowing everybody out of the water for the price you had to pay. So right now, I'm actually more intrigued and willing to call Malik Neighbors the MVP of the wide receivers. I know he even missed some time himself, but, man, averaging 15 targets per game in his healthy game, just looking like the next superstar at the position. And again, maybe it's owner's bias because I have him in a lot of leagues, and he's really the only receiver I have left standing at this point. But I love Malik Neighbors. I love the volume he's getting. I am worried about what this offense is going to be now moving forward. Daniel Jones looked horrible after they lost Andrew Thomas, that left tackle. Like, this team is just crumbling. So I'm worried Malik Neighbors. It might not be the guy moving forward, and probably won't be. But in terms of just looking at the season so far and who's held up, I think he's one of them. And Mo, maybe you're going to go with this guy, so I don't want to steal him from you. But rookie Brian Thomas, like both these rookies are just so surprising, and not even so surprising, just like outplaying Marvin Harrison by such a huge level. We knew it was a good rookie class. I did not expect that Neighbors and Brian Thomas would be the complete headliners in a tier of their own above Marvin Harrison. So those guys get the nod for me, even though Chase is the high scorer right now. Jefferson's right on his heels. And A.J. Brown's actually the leader in fantasy points per game. He just only played 2 of them so far, but he's blown up in all the games he's been out there. So moving down the rest of the season, I could see A.J. Brown really stepping up and thriving. But I'm going to go Malik Neighbors for so far in the season.
Maybe. I mean, two games is not enough of a sample. I mean, Cooper Kupp had a pretty good points per game after week 1, if I recall.
He sure did.
Mo, what do you think?
Target share.
Oh yeah. Oh, he was incredible. Right after week 1, you would have said Cooper Kupp was the guy. Go ahead, Mo.
First I wrote down Rashee Rice, then Chris Godwin, then Rashid Shaheed, and I had to erase all of them and ended up settling on Brian Thomas Jr. You knew who I was going to go with.
I called it.
Oh yeah, I came on this show a little. I call him a sleeper, a little bit of a fraudulent sleeper, just because of how early he was being drafted in best ball leagues. But I mean, like, this dude was drafted in the 10th round in ADP of like your standard home league. It was absolute nonsense. I mean, everything about this guy, just alpha wide receiver. It's insane to see what he's doing. He's got the He's got the deep ball skills. We're seeing him getting mixed in with some of those more intermediate and short targets. They threw a screen to him last week. I mean, like, I just didn't think that this, like, they're just feeding him looks now. And the trajectory of this guy is sky high. He's got the talent. He's got the speed. He's got the size. It's just, this guy is going to be a staple NFL wide receiver for years to come. He's already solidified himself as a wide receiver 2 in fantasy, and I think he's legitimately making a push for that wide receiver 1 threshold. I think most people in the rest of season rankings have him right on the cusp of wide receiver 1 status. So just everything about this guy just screams star in the making. And I'm just thrilled to have a bunch of him on my teams. The 2 guys that I did write down as challengers, I'll go with one that I think is a little bit sneakier and a little bit more legitimate. T. Higgins. T. Higgins having a shockingly good season after getting off to a slow start. He misses the first 2 games and kind of doesn't look like himself in the 3rd game. But for 3 straight weeks, he's out-targeted Jamar Chase. He's commanding a significant piece of the target share. The Bengals defense, I mean, they've looked good in recent weeks, but they've played some really, really awful teams. I really do think the Bengals defense on their best day is average at best. For the most part, against a good offense is going to look pretty abysmal. So I think that the Bengals are going to be in plenty of shootouts. T. Higgins is having a career year, and nobody really seems to be talking about it. I mean, maybe like the nitty gritty fantasy guys are, but just the general public, this guy is having a phenomenal season, and he's got not only is he playing well, but he has the volume of a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. He's getting 7 to 10 targets a week. It's like give me volume. It's a ton of stuff. I mean, you just watch his receptions last week. They were all explosive plays, all 15+ yards. It's insane what this guy's doing, and I think he's being significantly slept on for where you got him in drafts. It was a disappointing start to the year, but look for him to make a splash down the stretch.
45 targets to 39 for Jamar Chase in their healthy games, 45 T, 39 Chase. So you're right. He's definitely out-commanding him in target earning ability. I know Chase is doing a little bit more with what he gets, but yeah, he is putting together a special season. That man is going to get paid this offseason, no doubt, Mo.
So the reason that the ones that I was struggling with, like I said, it was like whack-a-mole, and then I had, it's like there's Jamar Chase at the top. But if you look at him, it's exactly what we said about him in the preseason. He's boom or bust. Like, and the booms are incredible, and the busts are still there. Like, you still have multiple under 10 point a game weeks, stuff like that. Jefferson more consistent, but without the insane blow ups. And I got to say, with Jefferson, there's at least a part of me. It's like I every single week I'm like, is Sam Darnold really good? And I just kind of keep wondering if that's going to come crashing down to earth. Just one more thing on BTJ and Neighbors, which I think are both very interesting takes. I got BTJ for $3 in my auction. Yeah, it was not bad.
Do you get to keep him next year, or is it not a keeper league?
No, I got Jaden Daniels and BTJ for a combined $5.
Yeah,
and somehow my team is still terrible. Yeah, somehow it has happened that way. I'll say one thing about BTJ and Neighbors. Look who's throwing them the ball, too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just think. I mean, I don't care what Daniel Jones isn't good. Trevor Lawrence isn't good. Those guys are good. All right, let's talk tight ends.
He's going to definitely contest that one.
Well, no time to contest that.
No time for that. Let's move on to the tight end.
What do you think, Wolf? You think Trevor Lawrence?
I think Trevor Lawrence is a trash bag, and I'm sure we're going to hear more about him later for rebounds or fallbacks. I think Trevor Lawrence sucks.
Well, it's fun. Trevor Lawrence sucking actually plays into my hottest take down at the bottom. So we'll you might have to run me into the dirt over that. All right, tight end. Let's talk about that. To me, this is pretty. I mean, to me, it's Kittle, right?
Yeah, I think Mo's got one that he'll use as a contender, and I think that's very fair too. But right now, Kittle leads the position in half PPR points per game, 14 per game. It's 3 more than the next closest guy, which I do think is by far the most valuable contender here. But you also look moving forward with no Brandon Ayuk here. I do think Kittle's going to remain the main vein here. He's averaging just half a point less per game than Amon-Ra St. Brown, than Drake London right now. More points per game than Jaden Reed, than Brian Thomas, who we were just talking about as the MVP. This is coming at the tight end position, the hardest place to find points this year. So not only is Kittle like the tight end MVP in my eyes, if you want to name him the overall fantasy MVP, that might seem crazy, but I just at such a bad position this year. This guy has gotten you double-digit points every single week with some humongous spikes mixed in there as well. So, yeah, Kittle for me is the guy, but I know who Mo's going to say, and I do think he's a very worthy contender. At least I think I know who you're going to say.
Yeah, it's Brock Bowers. I
Yeah.
don't even think it's close either. In the 4 games without Devontae Adams, he's earning a target on 33% of his routes. Like it's absurd. And it's not even like it's like Wan'Dale Robinson, like a bunch of targets, nothing production. I mean, the guy is good too. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's not like that scam BS that you get with Evan Ingram or Wan'Dale Robinson. I mean, the guy is certified #good. I mean, everything he does, he's pacing to break like not only like tight end records, he's pacing to break rookie records, like just general receiving, like coming for Puka Nacua. So it's insane what this guy is doing. I really don't think, barring injury, like relative to cost, barring injury, there will be a more valuable player. It's just at tight end at least. He's legitimately a wide receiver too that you can just stick in your tight end slot. He's gonna have the by far the most volume of any tight end down the stretch this season, and he's got the talent to overcome the poor offensive environment. I think he's very similar to Malik Neighbors in that sense. So yeah, I really don't think it's really even close. It's easily Brock Bowers for me.
That makes sense. As soon as I said Kittle, I was like, it's probably Bowers.
Yeah, he's actually on pace to set the record for rookie receptions, not among tight ends, of all pass catchers ever right now. 119 pace right now for receptions would break the record all time for rookie pass catchers. So, yeah, he's doing some real special things this year. And as you said, without Devontae Adams moving forward, it seems like it's only going upward. Definitely, if we the rest of the season, big board, him, Kittle, both in the first round or two type of players for sure. Both those guys are absolute animals.
All right. What's your best waiver wire or late round pick? Are you saying best one that we've actually made or looking into the future?
No, just the best one we've already made. We'll ultimately get to the who's going to be that comeback or no, just come out of nowhere. There is that guy every single year that just goes bananas. And I do have a couple of random ass names that I'm excited to throw at you guys. But so far, who has been the best one? In my opinion, and Mo, you got a great one coming up here too. Probably the best one actually is who Mo's going to tell you. But in terms of waiver wire pickups, it's been a lackluster year. There hasn't been that Kyron Williams, that Puka Nacua. But I just see what Kareem Hunt is doing right now. 16.33 fantasy points per game. He's the RB9 in that category. That's more than Chris Godwin, more than Malik Neighbors, 0.3 less than Justin Jefferson in half PPR points per game. And the one reason why it's like, is he going to continue this and be the best valuable waiver wire pickup all year? Well, maybe Pacheco comes back, but I also look at this and I see an undefeated Chiefs team that really can just grind it out without having to rush any of these stars back. And we've seen that in the past. They give Travis Kelce a lower snap count. They really do prioritize having the team fully healthy for the playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see Isaiah Pacheco again, the way that Kareem Hunt is playing, the way that the Chiefs are just playing this kind of grind it out, use our defense, use our run game. As bad as Mahomes has been, it's really just the run game, and they're leaning on Kareem Hunt. All the talk of Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, it was Hunt the whole time. He is the clear bell cow, and one of the best situations. Andy Reid's offense has always been productive when they feature one running back. So I think Kareem Hunt, this is not a fluke at all. I think he's a low-end running back one moving forward the rest of the year that you guys all got for free because everybody was bickering about who's better, Perine or Steele, and it was Hunt. He's the best waiver wire pickup of the year by far for me.
Yeah, the tough thing with Hunt for me is I just think he sucks. He's not explosive. He's not like super talented. It's just like a completely volume-based thing. But you look at the Chiefs' schedule, like how many negative game scripts are they going to be in? Probably not that many. Like they've got the Bills on there, like the Texans down the line, but like it's a lot of just like very like shoe-in Chiefs wins coming up. And like you said, just ride the defense, run the ball 25 times with Kareem Hunt and get on with it. And if he's averaging 3.5, 4 yards a carry, 25 carries, you can do the math. He falls in the end zone one time. Yeah, he's going to get there. That's the most frustrating part. I just think he sucks. But it is what it is. The two I had here, I'll quickly name one. Chuba Hubbard. He was legitimately drafted in just about every league. Top 10 running back right now. I'm personally, that's going to fall off. It's all going downhill for Hubbard. Sell if you can. But the other one that I really want to highlight was Jordan Mason.
Yeah.
Should have been drafted in leagues just like with the situation with McCaffrey and the fact that Eli Mitchell went on IR. I know that was kind of late, but it is what it is. But he was undrafted in a good amount of leagues, and he ended up being a waiver wire pickup. So I think he fills both these categories. Either he was a waiver wire pickup or a late round pick. Obviously, like you're getting really, really strong production out of him. It's kind of fallen off a little bit lately. I mean, like the guy can't score a touchdown unless the ball is at the 1 yard line. Like if it's anywhere outside the 2 or the 3, like this guy's not punching it in. But it's not the end of the world. So I'd be happy if I had Mason. I've got him in a couple leagues. So his expiration date's coming soon, but he was still one of the most valuable late round waiver wire pickups for sure.
Yeah. So I agree with both your takes, and I agree, Wolf, that Hunt's probably been the best waiver wire pickup. But I think with all these guys, they're all going to. I mean, you already touched on it with Hubbard. I mean, I think I could see Hunt effectively taking the job from Pacheco. But if Pacheco does come back, it's at the very worst going to be, or at very best going to be a committee like a Tampa Bay situation. I don't want any part of that really, and I could totally see that happening.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like if Pacheco comes back, it's not like Hunt has taken his job. I think Pacheco is the way better player, far more explosive, brings more to the offense. It's more so that the idea that like they don't need to rush him back. So are they going to?
As it turns out, they don't.
No. So I just don't think I wouldn't be shocked at all if they held him out till the playoffs, maybe a week or two beforehand to get his feet wet. But as long as Hunt's playing this way, they're undefeated. That's kind of the whole end all be all here. Is like if we don't need him, we're not going to force him back here. Let's get Pacheco fully healthy, and then they unleash him in the playoffs. Like that's how I see this playing out myself.
If I told you going into week 8 or whatever the hell this is, I think it is week 8, that Pat Mahomes was going to have 6 touchdowns and 8 picks, what would you have said that you thought? And Pacheco like out for the half the season, what would you have thought theoretically that the Chiefs' record would have been? Like 2-5?
Right, exactly. At best 500, just because they do have a good defense too. But yeah, it is absurd that they are undefeated and Mahomes is playing as bad as he is.
It's crazy. Real quick, we did have a super chat from Tyler. This breaks a tiny bit of our flow, but we got to respect our super chats. Tyler says, start Otten or Ferguson.
Oh, and thank you so much, Tyler, for the super chat. I do lean Ferguson. You know, is it even the better offense? No, not really at this point. And then you think like, okay, but Otten might be the main bane here. 10 targets, 8 catches, over 100 yards this last week. So I do like Otten. But I feel like Fergie's been rock solid all year. Otten's just not good as a player. This is tricky though. Like it's crazy that this has become a very, very tough question for me. I do have Ferguson slightly higher. I think off the bye week, we saw it last year where they just became the Cowboys a complete pass circus and ended up leading the league in passing. And I have hope that maybe this offense can reemerge from this bye. We know McCarthy's playing for his job at this point, so they are definitely going to be throwing all the stops out. And I do think Ferguson is still the pretty clear number 2 behind only CeeDee Lamb here. So for this week, as much as I do like Otten moving forward, I think he's a top 10 rest of season tight end. I do think Ferguson, he's a top 7 rest of season tight end for me. And that's where I lean. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat here. I'm going with talent every single time here. I legitimately think that they'll be earning targets at a similar rate. Ferguson was pushing for a 25% target per out run earlier this year, but heading into the bye, Otten, I don't really see him pushing to that level in this Buccaneers offense, and just the offensive quality in Tampa Bay, I expect it to take a significant step back. And I know the Dallas Cowboys offense has been disappointing so far this season, but I still expect it to far exceed what we see out of Tampa Bay for this next month or so, especially before Mike Evans gets back. And the fact that I'm legitimately having to think to myself, can Cade Otton earn targets over Jalen McMillan and the corpse of Sterling Shepard? If I have to have that thought, that kind of tells you what kind of talent Cade Otton is. So I'm chasing the talent and not the volume. I mean, we see just like chasing the volume not work out. I just think this offense is going to be bad, not sustaining drives, not providing scoring opportunities. So I'm going with the better talent and offensive situation.
I'm not going to argue with you guys on this one.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Tyler. You always super chat. You're so consistent with it.
Seriously.
You're the man. Thank you, Tyler.
All right. What's our next banner?
So we are going on to our best and worst take. I know we wanted to do kind of the recap portion in about 30 minutes. We're already at 34, so we won't belabor this. But let's talk about what take we're kind of most proud of calling here. And I'll kick it off. It's always nice to be right in terms of like getting the breakout right. I called Jaden Daniels the must-draft QB, Ken Walker the must-draft running back. That feels good. But I think that it never gets the glory that it should is predicting busts. And it might be the best article I've ever actually written here in terms of accuracy. Yeah. My 2024 bust article was Anthony Richardson, Travis Etienne, Zamir White, Chris Olave, Sam Laporta, and George Pickens. So Pickens is the only one that's kind of up in the air. Now, if we didn't have that Russ game that just happened, we'd all probably be sitting here and saying, yeah, Pickens is also a bust. But at minimum, 5 of 6 have been maybe the biggest busts at their position so far this fantasy season relative to their cost. So I am just very proud of that article. It did really well on Reddit, and a lot of people said they were calling me crazy. But ultimately, you look back at it, and none of those guys are smashes. And most of them are flat out huge busts. So I feel really good about that article. My best take of the year would be the guys I said to fade as of right now.
Mo?
Yeah, mine are kind of like 2 points we've already kind of hit here. Being on Shaheed and Thomas. Shaheed's not going to make me any money, but Brian Thomas Jr. will make me some money. And then, I was on the fade Sam Laporta train as well as a couple of the other names you mentioned, Pickens and Zamir White. I mean, Zamir White, like chasing the who else is going to get the touches narrative, like it fails yet again, guys. Like who saw this coming? Like really, it was like so obviously Mike Davis reincarnated. Like obviously, like with the volume that we were drafting, I drafted him some here and there, but I was at 2% Zamir White in my best ball portfolio. So, I mean, it was just like the most obvious outcome ever. So, a couple of those fades and Brian Thomas Jr., but don't need to get too in depth there. We've talked about him.
So mine was definitely Chris Olave is going to be terrible. And I feel like me and the Wolf maybe even argued with you at some point about that. I can't remember if it was you or somebody else. But I don't hit too many things. I don't take too many firm stands, but I was pretty sure he was going to be awful. The other thing, though, Mo, is that, and I actually used your advice on this, and this is one where I feel you've been proven right. And because of idiotic coaching and bad luck, it hasn't really come to fruition. I remember you specifically saying that you really believed in following and chasing really bad talent. And that was your explanation for why Bucky Irving was going to emerge, because you were just like, White's terrible. And when you said that, we were on the show together, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense to me. Rashad White is terrible. And that's been proven true. He is. But somehow he still has his job. But I feel like you deserve more credit for that one. It's just for whatever reason, it hasn't really paid off yet.
Oh, yeah. It's not even like I was like a huge Bucky bull. It was just
you were like, White's terrible.
Yeah, it was whatever the path was to fading Rashad White. That was the path that I was going to take. And it could have been anyone. If Chase Edmonds was the one who ended up taking that RB2 job, I would have been just like draft Chase Edmonds. But thankfully, it was like a guy who's good, because Chase Edmonds is bad. But Rashad White is worse than all of them. Yeah, Rashad White's worse than all of them.
All right, good takes. All right, Wolf, go ahead.
Worst takes?
What's the worst take? It's hard to remember those.
We didn't have any bad takes. No, there's none at all. But no, we can't.
Mo, 2024 worst take. By the way, I love that Taylor Swift Eras Cup. We got one too.
I didn't go. I went to the movie.
I didn't go. Yeah, no, my wife and daughter went to the movie. We can't afford a concert.
Yeah, I'm not going to that. My worst take was easily fading Saquon Barkley. I mean, like I just like I just told myself like, oh yeah, they're not going to want him to play 80% of the snaps. He's playing like 72% of the snaps, I think. He's not going to get the touchdowns. It doesn't matter if they're still doing the tush push. He just scores from 25 yards out. So he's just consistently ripping long runs. He's like, it's not even like crazy receiving work either. It's just like the dude runs the ball incredibly well. He rips off explosive plays consistently. Like like my thinking for the take, like it's not like any of it has gone wrong. Like he's not seeing a ton of receiving work. The tush push is still very much alive. It's just like the dude is insanely good at the game of football.
Really good running back.
And he just like rips off 30, 40, 50-yard runs like every week, it seems. So like it doesn't like I got a little too micro with it and just didn't look at the macro of, oh yeah, this guy is like capable of producing explosive plays unlike any other running back in the NFL.
No, it was a pretty bad take. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Wolf. What was your worst take?
It is funny too, because all your points, like you said, were pretty correct. It's just he is so much better than anyone we've seen.
Made a lot of sense.
Barkley look, by himself, and it just I think we all kind of underrated how good that offensive line is, how much better that was going to help him out too, going from the Giants to the Eagles. We cited the PFF rankings. We talked about how it's going to be a big boost, but I think we all underrated how big of it is. I do not have nearly as much Barkley as I should myself. I'd say, we already talked about a lot of the misses. It's one of those things where one lesson I've learned is like the importance of OCs is huge when you get it right. Kingsbury is looking great in Washington for Jaden Daniels. Grubb in Seattle looking phenomenal as well. But when you like face plant and you go all in on an OC and it's wrong, it can be really bad. And Brian Callahan, Will Levis, and Calvin Ridley, like I was all about this being Bengals 2.0, Will Levis really taking off under the tutelage of a guy that worked with Peyton Manning and Joe Burrow and Matt Stafford, and the cannon arm's really going to be harnessed the right way. And Calvin Ridley is going to be playing that Jamar Chase role, and not Jamar Chase, but man, the guy can get it done when he's moved around. And they have just been so bad. I mean, there's been a worse offense to watch than the Titans. So I think buying the Titans was one of my worst takes, and just a reminder of like, it is still great to go in on a night OC. I just wish I had gone in a little bit more on some of the ones that have really hit it out of the park. The other take, though, and I know Mo wouldn't let me off the hook if I don't bring him up, is Gus Edwards and just the general idea of like these gross running backs, these plotters. I kind of embrace this mentality of in best ball and even in fantasy too, you need these guys that get you the singles, the Zeke Elliott's, right? The Gus Edwards. They're not sexy, but they're going to get volume and they're going to get touchdowns and they're going to end up being okay for you. Without this guy, the fact that like, when you don't have talent, the cliff can hit you so damn fast. And all of these guys have been hit by the cliff because they all flat out suck. So ultimately, this idea of like needing singles, needing to get some sure production in your late rounds and not just swinging for the fences every time, screw that. Like I'm back to going for only home runs. These guys don't make a difference. In fact, they just flat out suck. So yeah, I'm done with going for those singles and certainly embracing the plotter life. It has been ugly.
And go ahead, Mo. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll never forget spending 15 minutes trying to tell you to draft Brian Robinson over Gus Edwards, and it never happened. It never happened.
You were just screaming into the abyss. So, also that's terrible. I'm glad we can look at it now and laugh a little bit. And before I rub it in your faces too much, what dumb takes they were. I thought Tank Dell was going to be awesome this year.
No, so did I.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of my worst takes. And how about, oh, hey, Nico's out now. He's good. Oh, how about 0 points? God.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was among my worst takes. There might have been worse ones. That's the one that sticks in my craw the most. All right, let's move on. Biggest player or team surprise that you fully buy is real. Wow, that's a mouthful. All right, who surprised you and you're like, yeah, that's legit? Mo, who do you think?
And we're now more in that like look ahead portion of things too, more predictive of like what we've seen, but also what we think is real from what we've seen. And again, 300 of you here would love you guys to hit that thumbs up button, keep this going out to more people. Love to see a random Wednesday popping up and getting you guys in here. Lots of good questions too. But Truth, you brought this one up earlier, and I'm glad you did. And Sam Darnold, is he for real? Are these Vikings for real? Can we trust them moving forward? And whether or not Sam Darnold himself is actually real, I don't know that it matters because I really do buy Kevin O'Connell. We've seen it last year with Josh Dobbs, with Nick Mullins, whoever his quarterback is, it's just such a QB friendly system, especially when you get the weapons involved of Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, now TJ Hawkinson about to come back. I think this is just too good of an offense to fail. Under Kevin O'Connell, they've ranked so far in his previous years 672 and 631 pass attempts, third and fourth in the league, second and first in passing yards, and fourth in passing touchdowns in back-to-back years. And one of those was his cousins, but again, one of them was with that mismatch hodgepodge of QBs that I think Sam Darnold is just as good, if not better, than all of those ones. So I think he is more than capable of keeping this up right now. The quarterback 7 in fantasy points per game, and they haven't really even been pushed. The Lions game was the first time we saw this team truly in a potential shootout, but they were still leading the vast majority of this game and trying to bleed clock with Aaron Jones. So now with Hawkinson coming back with some ideally more positive scripts that we're going to get more shootouts, I think Sam Darnold's for real. I'm definitely buying the Vikings. I do want to toss out Ryan Grubb and the Seahawks as well. I think he is the real deal as a play caller. Drop back rate over expectation, top in the league. Plays per minute, top in the league. We're seeing Geno absolutely cook, and I think Geno is very for real in this offense, and I think Ryan Grubb as a play caller is one of the best in the league right from the jump. So I thought those were the two teams that are surprising, and I think also very, very legitimate.
Mo?
I can't get behind Sam Darnold. I just think
right?
Defense is so good that it's just not going to be a lot of negative game scripts. He's going to have to maintain a ridiculous touchdown rate to get there on a week-to-week basis. It's just, I don't know. We don't have to talk about it that much, but I can't get there with Darnold. It just seems unsustainable given the quality of the defense and how much I think that this offense is going to be passing moving forward. But my team is obviously the Commanders. It's this deal with Jaden Daniels is very much real. I mean, he's doing it on the ground. He's doing it through the air. He's putting together one of the most efficient offenses in the NFL. They might have been lapped by the Ravens in EPA per play at this point, but if not, they're definitely top 3 in EPA per play. And the defense is picking it up too. This is starting to come together as not a bottom 3 defense in terms of their secondary and stuff. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's just a spurt where they're playing a handful of good games, but in the last month they've been not bottom of the barrel in defensive efficiency. So just as a team as a whole, I mean, this is very, very bright future for the Commanders. I'd be happy to have Jaden Daniels on the fantasy rosters. I think Terry McLaurin is a very solid wide receiver 2 option. I think Brian Robinson Jr. is a fine RB2 option. There's quality pieces here in this offense, but just from a team perspective, I very much buy this as a team to be legitimate contenders down the line. Maybe not this year, but just in the Jaden Daniels rookie contract, we're going to see this team make some moves and push to win a Super Bowl. And I really think that the NFC is looking like it's attackable right now. So I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about I wouldn't be shocked if heading into next year, the Commanders are the most bet team to win the Super Bowl preseason.
Okay, that's a good take. I will say that watching the Commanders, I was initially suspicious. I thought Daniels had real potential. But, man, I mean, that offense, when everybody's there and they really do click. So I agree. I think they're for real, definitely. The thing that works against Sam Darnold for me, other than all of his past performance, is that when you look at the guy, maybe this isn't fair, but he just kind of has a permanently confused look on his face. I just think that's how he looks. I don't necessarily think he's even confused, but it doesn't give me any confidence at all. So it's hard for me to buy into him for that very superficial, petty reason.
I think it's a fair reason to, and I can totally see it in the playoffs when they hit, I can already see that confused looking face and they're knocked out of round 1 despite being a top 2 seed. I don't think real life wise, I'm fully buying the Vikings are going to actually be a real contender. It's more so fantasy wise. I think this goodness is going to continue and even get better for sure. But yeah, I thought there's also a great point too, where you talk about Daniels is for real. I don't know how the Commanders are, but then you see them just continue to hum. You look when Marcus Mariota even gets in. I know it was against the Panthers last week, but they just kept going a well-oiled machine down the field. It is just good play calling on both sides of the ball. I totally agree. The Commanders are for real, and it's going to be exciting to see what they do in this window, this rookie year window. I totally agree.
I heard on another podcast someone positing, speaking of those Panthers, that they were the worst team of this decade.
They might not be wrong, other than maybe our Patriots are even worse over here. So
That's a good point. That's a good point. That they're pretty
oh
awful.
man.
Planning your day around watching the Patriots at 9:30 in the morning is one hell of a way to spend a Sunday.
Oh yeah, that was a horrible taste in the mouth to kick off the day. That's for sure. But moving
All
on
right.
to, I know you guys said like you don't believe in Darnold yourselves, and that's totally fine. Definitely a big surprise that could be fake. I didn't have anything like glaring jumping to mind for this one, but one guy I do think the Cinderella pumpkin's coming for is J.K. Dobbins, and
I agree.
it's not, I think Gus Edwards is coming back for him. Anything of that. I do actually believe the offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, they love to run it. I think the line is legit. I just feel like I watched J.K. Dobbins, and from what we saw at the beginning of the year, I know he was getting caught from behind, but he was just ripping through the holes and gliding through defenses. And the more and more they've added to his plate, it's looking great from a usage perspective. 25 carries a game and 80% of the snaps, and all that is great. But as I watch him play, it just seems like he's running out of steam already, and we know the injury history is real there. So if I had to sell on somebody that has had a great start, and I'm rooting for the guy. I love J.K. Dobbins. He was one of the best college running backs to watch. I think he is already kind of going backwards in his efficiency, in his productivity. And I love the usage. I love the setup. I love it all. But I just don't think he's going to hold up, whether it's injury, whether it's ineffectiveness. I think J.K. Dobbins is going to be the one that, if you could sell him now, as everybody looks at the great metrics and the peripherals of the last few weeks, he's the guy that I'm trying to move as fast as I can.
Good call.
Mine's Jameson Williams, and it's like it might be a little too late now. This was like a guy that I said you should be like fire selling last week, but there's nothing there to like make me interested in Jameson Williams. He hasn't hit a 20% target share since week 1. He's been below 15% in each of his last 3 games. In the last month, 70% of his fantasy production has come on 2 plays. Like, he's like exactly what we thought he was. He's like this big play, deep threat kind of receiver, low volume. It's like we were tricked for 2 weeks. He saw 20 targets in the first 2 games. And I mean, like, maybe it has something to do just like with the fact that it's like super low volume, highly efficient Detroit offense, but still, like, he's like getting out targeted by Tim Patrick, for God's sake. Like, it's like he's just not like the high volume guy that he seemed like he would be. And before what did he have last week? 0.4 fantasy points or something like that, but like less than 2. But before last week, like, he was still in the wide receiver 2 ranks. Like, his game log looked good. You could ship him off to someone who's just like the epitome of a game log box score watcher. Like, he was ripping off big plays, but the underlying usage, the underlying production, like the target earning, is just all like exactly what he has been throughout his career. He relies on those splash plays, and he'll get there on the splash plays some of the weeks, but it's just he's nothing more than a boom bust flex kind of guy. And I don't know, like, he has a place in fantasy lineups. Like, he has a place, but especially like when I was advocating for this last week, like, you could pawn him off as a wide receiver 2. But yeah, I'm just not buying this guy. He's just not someone I'm super interested in having on rosters. I don't think we're in for the JMO breakout season, and people criticize me for saying that online, but it's just, I think that's the reality.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was a little late on this. I said the Saints were going to be terrible. Then they started off 2-0, and they were compared literally to the greatest show on turf, the Warner Rams. And I was not buying it. But unfortunately, they're 2-5 now. So me saying the Saints are going to suck is not going to get me any points with anybody. But I was saying it when they were 2-0. I'm just putting it out there.
You were. Right. We talked about it just because you brought up JMO too, and I think you're spot on with this thing. But obviously, we know the suspension is now coming. Did you guys see what the PEDs were that he has been using?
No, what's he using?
I saw a joke about Viagra, but was it real?
I think it's Viagra. Yeah.
Oh my god!
They're not allowed. Apparently not. Maybe it was just a joke too. But I saw a few posts about it now. It was the one that you saw, Mo, where it was the side by side of him and Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
It's so funny where it's like Jameson Williams uses Viagra too frequently. We have no room for boners in this league. He deserves a suspension for a crime of this level. We do not tolerate this. And then right next to him, the Chiefs, of course. Rashee Rice drives 120 miles per hour, causes an accident, almost like murders people. Welcome back, buddy. How was your hobbies? And everybody makes mistakes. It's like, it's just so ridiculous. the juxtaposition, the Chiefs glorified treatment they all get. But yeah.
Yeah, well, how about that? Right. Well, I mean, yeah, Kareem Hunt's had his issues as well. Let's not forget. It was a while ago, but his past is not.
He's banned from elevators.
The Chiefs managed to give him a pass eventually on that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, moving on.
All righty.
Now this is a little these next two questions are a little similar to the last two, so I'm interested how you're going to vary on these. Which player or players or team will turn it around most in the second half of 2024? I assume you're talking about in a positive way.
Yeah, that's kind of who started slow or not started at all, but could be a big contender in the second half of the season. And I think you got to kick this one off with Christian McCaffrey. It's an obvious one, but you have to just remind you guys out there. And I think this is the crux of when you have to decide what you're going to do with him, whether you have him on your team or whether you're trying to put together an offer and buy him. Let's talk about what this guy has done and why I think this is the time. I'll just give it away now that you have to buy. I think this is a guy that's going to win whoever has him on their roster for these next 10 weeks titles. This is a guy that's the running back 3, running back 1, running back 1, running back 8, running back 2, and running back 1 across his 6 seasons. He had the 5th highest scoring season of a running back all time and was on pace to outscore that in his follow-up since he's joined the 49ers. Top 20, he's had 20 or more PPR points, half PPR points rather, in 15 of 16 games. That's 57.6% of the time he's gotten you 20 or more points. He's been a top 12 running back in 77% of his games. He's been a top 5 running back in 54% of his games. He has been absolutely lights out in this offense with Kyle Shanahan, and last year finished first in opportunities, 4th in targets, 1st in rushing yards, 1st in rushing touchdowns, and 1st in PPR fantasy points per game and total fantasy points. He does it all. He's phenomenal. You guys don't need me to fully spell it out for you, but I think a lot of people have forgotten just how big of a difference maker this guy is. And I also look at the situation where the 49ers, they're like a fringe playoff team right now. They're going to need everybody they can get. Ayuk is now out. Debo's in the hospital for pneumonia. I know he's not coming back this week, but ultimately they're going to need CMC if he is ready to go. Now, the risk of buying him, of course, is they put him out there after the bye. Week 10 is where everybody's expecting him to come back. The calf flares up. He's off on the sidelines after the first carry, and oh man, whatever you gave up, you got nothing for it. But the upside of having legitimately a top 5 running back every week the rest of your season for probably a discounted rate at this point. I do think this is the week you have to jump, though, because you have week 8, you have their bye in week 9. At that point, if the CMC owner has gotten to the bye week, they're probably just going to embrace I've waited this long. Let me see what I can, what happens with CMC. But I think if you can give them something that's going to help push them over the edge in weeks 8 and week 9, I'd hate to say sell Brian Thomas, but maybe a Brian Thomas, J.K. Dobbins. That's a lot, but if you are sitting at 4-2, I guess you probably have to have 5 wins, maybe 4 wins, though, if you really feel good about the rest of your roster that you could weather a 1 loss in these next 2 weeks. I'm telling you, CMC is going to win you titles, and this is the week to go out there, test the waters, see if you can pry him away, and help the CMC owner, help them dig themselves out of their abyss and give them a fighting chance by giving them some win now prospects to give yourself CMC, who's going to win you your league down the stretch.
No.
Yeah, another one that we were planning to talk about here, injury-riddled team, most obviously the Miami Dolphins. Tyreek Hill, I just want to, please don't forget, what kind of player both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are with Tua Tagovailoa under center. Tyreek Hill, over 22 fantasy points per game in his, I believe it's 31 career games with Tua Tagovailoa, over 22. I mean, that's this season. That's the wide receiver 1 on a per game basis. Just game-breaking, matchup-winning upside every single week he's on the field. This is like what we've seen in the last month and a half is not the Miami Dolphins offense. They rank 26th or lower in yards per play, EPA per play, scoring offense. It's just it's a total disaster. And when Tua comes back, I mean, nobody really needs to be reminded of how good Tyreek Hill is. I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward. But Jalen Waddle last season on a per route basis, Jalen Waddle was one of those guys that like a lot of people like to evaluate on a per route basis just because he was injured in so many games and like left drives here and there. Top 10 in targets, yards, and fantasy points per route run last season. Like he can compete with the elite receivers. He can compete with the best of them. I think Tyreek Hill is a shoe-in top 5 guy for the rest of the season, and I believe I have Jalen Waddle inside the top 20.
Hey, as an aside, let me ask you guys something. What'd you think of Tua saying he's not wearing a Guardian cap when he comes back?
It's wild.
And they said why, and he said personal choice.
Yeah, like I don't know. If you look a little foolish out there, but you're protecting yourself, I don't get why this guy wouldn't wear the Guardian cap. It makes no sense to me. He absolutely should. But Mo, in addition to your point, I think Tyreek, Waddle are great buys, but I also think Devon Achane, who's seeing like a really, really solid workload this year. Like if you had said we were going to be getting the weighted opportunities that this guy is getting, right around 60% of the snaps and touches, if you had told me that going into the year, I would have said this guy should be a top 5 overall pick in fantasy drafts, and it hasn't been getting overly effective production just like those other guys because nobody can move the ball in that offense. But with Tua back, I do think Devon Achane is a phenomenal. See if you can get him for lower based on what his recent production has, because the underlying peripherals, the metrics in terms of expected fantasy points for Achane have been insane. And I know he won't be nearly as efficient as he was last year, the record-breaking efficiency. But if he can even get close to that level with the usage he's now seeing, he'll break fantasy over the last half of the year. So he's definitely a guy I would add to that list as we're talking about the Dolphins. Somebody I would love to buy. So those are the obvious ones, though, the CMCs, the Dolphins. I think we should toss out at least a handful more of guys that like everything is right for a potential turnaround. I'll throw out, maybe we can alternate here. And obviously, Truth, of course, toss in any that you hear that you like, or if you have any other ones. I'm going to go with Amari Cooper, another one that like seems obvious on paper, but I don't know if people are quite recognizing how monstrous this guy could be. He only played 34% of the routes in his first week, 5 days of practice, doesn't have much time. And on just 12 total routes, he accounts for 42% targets per route run, 22% of the team's air yards, ultimately commands a 16% target share and scores 16.6 fantasy points, was the wide receiver 11, again, on 34% of the routes, 1.36 fantasy points per route. Last year in his historic season with Tyreek Hill, he averaged 0.75 fantasy points per route. Now, again, small sample. I get it. I'm not saying that Amari Cooper is going to suddenly put up 1.3 fantasy points per route, but the fact that he already had a great smashing debut, that this offense is just a buzzsaw even without him on there. Like once that becomes an 80% route share, I really think Amari Cooper is going to be a shoe-in top 10 wide receiver that you can still buy right now because of the way he was weighed down by Deshaun Watson. Still think you can probably buy him as like a mid-range to even high range if you have to, wide receiver too. And like I said, I think he's got true top 10 upside rest of season. I think he's going to feast with Josh Allen here on out.
Yeah, I definitely think it's better for Amari Cooper moving forward. I don't view him that highly, like top 10 potential. I've got him more in the flex category at this point. But another guy, one guy that what were you gonna say?
You call him
I agree with you.
I mean,
you guys are wrong.
Yeah, I think I've got him at wide receiver 26 right now, maybe 27. So like I can see low end wide receiver 2, but I'm not getting that high. But
all right.
One guy I think it's kind of blatantly obvious. CeeDee Lamb. I mean, we lived this reality last year. He's a disappointment going into their week 7 bye, and they come out guns a-blazing, throwing the ball at the highest rate in the league. Mike McCarthy's playing for his job or coaching for his job, and the Cowboys go bananas. I mean, it's not like we're giving up on the talent of CeeDee Lamb. It's just that the offensive environment hasn't been there, and I mean, there really hasn't been an indication to believe that they're going to turn things around. But I mean, I'm still willing to bet on the talent of CeeDee Lamb. I think this is like this 6-game stretch is like the floor outcome for him, and I just don't think that it's going to get any worse.
Yeah, it does seem like the simulation is just kind of like run itself back. Literally the exact thing we saw from the Cowboys last year is happening yet again. So if that ends up being the same exact simulation we saw last year, yeah, well, it could go crazy. I do want to toss out David Njoku, like the other side of the Amari Cooper side of things. First game without him, 31% first read target share, 14 targets, 10 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown, 23.6 points. The tight end won. And now you have famous Jameis coming in here, slinging him the rock. Oh, baby, I am all about David Njoku moving forward. I think he'll join that George Kittle, Brock Bowers, maybe just below those guys. But I could see a case for him being the number 3 tight end rest of the season based on the setup we got here.
One guy I also think, just like to pile on here, another guy who I just don't think it can get any worse for is Chris Olave. I really can it get any worse?
No, you're right. It probably can't.
Like how much better can it get? I guess is the follow up there. Can it get worse? No. How good can it get? Let's hear it.
Wide receiver 2 flex.
Amari Cooper or Chris Olave.
I've got Cooper ahead, but they're both right there for me though. They're like fringe wide receiver 2 flex options for me right now. But I mean, like Derek Carr's timeline to return is similar to Olave's, and I mean, I you know me, I was as big of a Shaheed bull as there is, but like, who is gonna earn targets ahead of Chris Olave in this offense? Don't tell me it's Bub Means. Don't tell me it's Mason Tipton. Don't tell me it's Cedric Wilson.
I wish it was Bub Means.
Everyone, like the people who were pushing him as like a flex option last week, those people need to get a grip. It's like I tweeted that word for word last week ahead of Thursday Night Football, and like it's gonna be a 30% target share for Chris Olave moving forward when Derek Carr comes back. I mean, like. I know it sounds crazy, but like, is there another reality? Like we all know targets are earned, not handed out, and Chris Olave is going to be earning those targets. I think you're going to be fine with him in your starting lineup. I mean, like just assuming you have a flex like every league does. Like I think you're going to be fine starting him in your flex moving forward.
We'll see. I got to go in a minute, fellas, but I can maybe do another of these. But I wanted to just throw out there 2 thoughts just that came to me stream of conscious. First of all, watching that Thursday night game, Spencer Rattler looked like maybe the worst person who's ever picked up a football in the NFL. I mean, I was and keep in mind, we watched Bryce Young all for a couple games this year. I was like blown away by how awful it was. And the second thing, speaking of terrible quarterbacks, have you ever seen like a fan base more thrilled with someone tearing their Achilles than what would happen with Deshaun Watson?
Oh, I mean, I'm a Bengals fan, so I was watching that game like every play, and I was like, wait, are they booing right now? And then like thought to myself, like, how are they doing this? And then I was like, yeah, it makes sense. Like, I'm not that shocked. Like,
right.
It's probably not the right call, but I'm not shocked.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare that you see someone just that like, yes, he's out.
That's
for the
karma for you right there, though. You know, like it's so clear. Right
there. Does he play another snap?
No,
for the Browns.
Maybe.
I think he's done. That's his NFL career right there. No one else is going to give him another chance, in my opinion, for Deshaun Watson. I know you said you got to run truth. I'll toss out, and if you got to run, you got to run. But you mentioned Cooper Kupp earlier. 44% target share in that first game, 21 targets, 51% of the air yards, 32 PPR points in week 1. Like another one of those just no-brainer. Like if he was the second to first best receiver from here on out the rest of the year, no one would be shocked, and you could probably get him for a significant discount. Compared to that, yeah, you're taking on some big risk. Puka Nacua obviously falls in a similar boat, but I'd be much more interested in going after Cooper Kupp. I'm worried that the Puka knee thing is just going to linger all year. And so I think Cooper Kupp is one of those clear-cut obvious ones. And you got to DeAndre Hopkins, now that he's been traded to the Chiefs, like I know this is not the high-flying Chiefs and it's not a great pass attack, but maybe Hopkins is the type of guy that they've just been missing, a guy that is so sure-handed that can win on any route. I think he can do exactly what – he's not quite as quick as Rashee Rice, not as dangerous after the catch by any means, but in terms of just getting open at the line of scrimmage and being that quick, 5-7 yards, I can break in and you hit me. He's going to probably rack those things up. So I know everyone's going to be all hyped up. I don't think you can probably buy low on DeAndre Hopkins, but I bet if you could buy him right now at like a wide receiver 30 price, I wouldn't be shocked if in 3 weeks from now we're looking at him like a top 15 wide receiver. Just because he is that go-to chain mover that we thought Juju was going to be for a little bit after Rice went down. I could see Hopkins becoming that layup because Kelsey's clearing out the answer. That guy sucks. So yeah, I'm going DeAndre Hopkins is one other guy that I could see that didn't do much to start the year, but ultimately could be a monster down the stretch.
I might eat my words on this because I'm a tried and true and well-established DeAndre Hopkins stan, but I have a feeling that expectations are going to be higher for him than what he ends up delivering. It's just kind of a nagging sensation I have. People are going to get really high. Like right now in my league, it's like people are acting like this guy's going to be like top 5 wide receiver now. And it's like, have you seen, Mahomes has not been good this year. I don't think it's because he hasn't had DeAndre Hopkins on his team. I don't know. I think he'll be okay, but I think he'll probably be a little bit underwhelming. What do you think, Mo?
Well, we were going to talk about like rest of season rankings discrepancies later on in the show, but we can just have this conversation now.
I want to be here for this.
Yeah, I'm well behind Wolf on DeAndre Hopkins. Okay. He's got him at wide receiver 25 rest of season, and I've got him at wide receiver 32. I don't see it at all. We know that this is like a dink and dunk offense. Patrick Mahomes ranks dead last in average depth of target and dead last in deep throw rate this season. Is 32-year-old DeAndre Hopkins going to change the offensive philosophy of Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs? No. And I just think you're wrong, Wolf. Like, is he going to run those quick in-breaking routes and like dominate the shallow part of the field? I don't remember, did he ever do that? Like, even in his prime?
Do you not remember with the Cardinals? Like, that he would have like 15 target days and he would just rack it up time and time again.
Highly vertical receiver. He's still like, everything he's like successful at doing is downfield and like contested catch situations.
He's got really good hands.
His game is vertical. It's not in breaking quick little routes on the shallow part of the field. And yeah, he's going to have some days, but it's like, you're right. Like the expectations for people, like they think Chiefs, they think DeAndre Hopkins, like they're going to put those two together and just be way, way, way like too high of expectations. I don't think this guy is anything more than a wide receiver 3. I don't see him playing that high volume role. Maybe it's the high volume role, but like he's the number 2 target earner behind Kelsey. But it's not like that quick hitting underneath stuff that leads to a bunch of just him racking up PPR points. It's going to be volatile. It's going to be high ceiling on the big plays. But like I said, I don't see him playing that role where he's doing all those in breaking routes. And I don't see 32-year-old DeAndre Hopkins fundamentally changing the Chiefs offense. It's just, I just don't see either of those things happening.
Yeah. I think we as fans just in general tend to get caught up in like oh man, do you remember how awesome DeAndre Hopkins was? And it's like, yeah, he was awesome. He might've been the best receiver in the NFL at some point, but like that was a long time ago and he's still a good receiver. But I think people are romanticizing this pair up a little bit too much. And it sounds like one of those people might be my good buddy, the Wolf.
Look, I have him at 25. I'm not sitting here. I've seen some people. I agree with you too. Like whoever has DeAndre Hopkins is telling themselves that narrative right now.
And telling everybody else that.
Top 10 DeAndre Hopkins. But I do think there is a world. Like I don't have Hopkins, and I still can see that world where Juju Smith-Schuster had 7 catches for 130 yards. Is he better than DeAndre Hopkins at in-breaking routes? No, like Juju Smith-Schuster is fat and sucks, and he was able to go in there and ultimately have these big days. It's just about finding soft, like having the veteran savvy of, okay, I just have to sit and park here because this is a soft spot in the zone, and Mahomes is going to see me, and he's just going to release the ball. I don't even have to run a route. I just have to literally leak out here, and I know that this is going to be the open spot. I think it's going to be more of that mind meld type of thing where Hopkins has that veteran ability to just know where to go. Mahomes is going to have the ball there before he even know. Like, it's just going to be a beautiful connection. Again, if Juju can have that type of connection, I have no doubt that Hopkins, sure, past his prime, not that type of guy, but he has been an engine of an offense. It's not like everything he did on 15 target days with Kyler Murray were all just deep bombs. Like he was an 11 catch guy multiple times over his career with just anywhere, but including most recently. Like he can do that stuff, even if his career has been built on the contested catches and built on the deep vertical stuff. He is more than capable of playing those easy layup roles. I think it's going to be a much bigger smash than you guys think here.
Isn't that basically kind of what I'm saying and what Mo said, but just more eloquently when you're talking about like, oh, Juju had this game where he, caught 7 passes or however many. Like we think that Hopkins will probably have some games. I mean, was Juju really making it work great with Mahomes, or did he just have like a good game or two? I mean, I don't remember him popping off the page really.
It was that first game he came back. It's more so like the new design of the offense. Like Rashee Rice was consistently getting hammered time and time again. And I'm not trying to compare this Hopkins to the Rashee Rice that we saw. They're completely different at this stage of their career. But like they just put Juju right into that role. It is all about like Andy Reid is so good at getting these layers of the field and creating these pockets and finding like all you need to be is that one guy that's going to be the one that eats on all the space. It's no longer Kelsey. I do not buy that part. Kelsey's now the leader of this offense. Dude, what did he do last week with no Juju? 2 catches for like 30 yards again. He has sucked all year. He continues to suck. He's washed up. He's toast. He's huffing and puffing. The one game he got used more than like 5 times, he was on the sideline sucking wind. Kelsey is not the concern to me. It's just a matter of like, I love Andy Reid. I know that he knows how to design an offense, and whoever ends up being that guy that's going to capitalize on these open pockets of space is going to have some really solid days here down the stretch. And I don't see why you would go and trade for DeAndre Hopkins if you didn't think he could do that for you. You just wait for Juju to get healthy, but Juju sucks. If Juju can put up 130 yards in his only game so far with the Chiefs, I think DeAndre Hopkins is more than capable of walking in here and having some smash games.
We'll see. I want him to be – well, it's like I want him to be successful, and I don't at the same time. I don't love the Chiefs winning every single game. It's funny. Like it's like, hey, the Chiefs have 6 passing touchdowns. They suck. Oh, they're also undefeated. So I don't know what to make of it. It could work out. I lean more towards Mo than towards you on this. But it's not like I would be shocked,
The last time DeAndre Hopkins was a high-volume receiver, that was 2 MCL tears ago. And he's 32 years old now. So we'll see. We'll see.
He's got good hands, but, we'll see if he can get open. With that said, guys, I got to go. This was fun.
Awesome, Drew. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we greatly appreciate it. Cheers,
see you guys. Thanks for coming.
See you.
I'm going to stay in the studio, but I'm turning my stuff off.
Awesome. All righty. So, yeah, I think that's a good time to transition. We really only have like one or two more topics here. This one being the come out of nowhere. So we talked about these kind of established identities. I will say, too, I just want to toss out like Chase Brown is a guy that just like week in and week out is kind of taking over that backfield in terms of snaps, in terms of carries. Wouldn't be shocked if by like week 10, he's just the featured back for your.
He's not even like a turning around guy. He's just a steadily get better guy.
Yeah, continue to climb. But I could see him just like exploding from the stretch run.
100%.
So I like tossing him out there. But the next question is more so that come out of nowhere, somebody who's rostered in 10% or less of leagues. We see it every year, a stretch run hero that goes bananas that nobody was really thinking about, that nobody had on their radar. Does somebody jump to mind for you right now as this kind of come out of nowhere candidate for the second half of 2024?
Yeah, I think you went like a little deeper cuts than I did on this. But the name that I got down was Rome Odunze. You just really see we've seen the breakout of Caleb Williams. I know it's come against 2 of the most favorable matchups and just piss poor defenses in the NFL. But you're seeing Caleb Williams come on. I'm watching a lot of these Odunze routes. I'm seeing him winning these routes. I'm seeing him get open. I'm not seeing a whole lot from Keenan Allen. We like the whole rookie post-buy narrative fits very well for him. The draft capital is there. I know like a lot of the peripheral metrics, like the yards per route run and some of the target earning stuff. It's not where you want it to be. It's it's frankly concerning. But so that's why I kind of think it fits. He fits into this category. I still very much believe in the talent of Rome Odunze. I think this is an ascending offense. I think Keenan Allen is a declining asset in both the NFL and fantasy football. And I really think that the Bears are going to look to work in their rookie wide receiver, their top 10 pick, into the offense to a higher degree here down the stretch. And I believe he has the talent to make the most of a wider role and more opportunity.
Yeah, I think the post-buy rookie bump is so real, and a top 9 overall pick in the draft, getting a post-buy rookie bump is certainly, and he's out there in a lot of leagues. He got cut by a lot of impatient owners out there. So I think he's a really good one to toss out of there because it is kind of come out of nowhere. You've seen truly just one great game, but I think that's a really nice toss out there. I did go a little deeper in terms of like rostership here. And the guy I'm going to toss out there is Cedric Tillman. I know this is like a complete Hail Mary out there, but I see one game without Amari Cooper. And what does Cedric Tillman do? He catches 8 of 12 targets, 81 yards, ultimately going for 16 PPR points, was the wide receiver 11 this past week. But it's more than just the fact that, like, no Cooper, 12 targets, okay? It's the fact that he saw 31% first read targets, was tied with David Njoku here. It's the fact that he was expected to score 24.2 fantasy points and led all wide receivers in that metric. It was no Cooper, who's going to be our wide receiver one? Judy, right? Or Elijah Moore. No, they decided we're going to craft this around Cedric Tillman. And we know that Jameis Winston's now coming in quarterback. He loves these type of big body guys that you can just throw it up to, let him make the plays. I think Cedric Tillman and him are going to be a perfect mold here. And I think it's just the start of something great. So I really, really like Cedric Tillman to be that come out of nowhere type of guy. But also Kamani Vidal. I think he's got the clear number 2 back role here behind only J.K. Dobbins. And as we talked about, the one that I'm not buying, I don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to last through the season, whether it's injury, whether he loses steam. But I think everything about this setup, why I bet so heavily on Gus and was so wrong, but ultimately that's all still true in terms of a top 10 line, a top 5 run rate, a very creative run scheme under Greg Roman. And I know it's very limited snaps so far for Vidal, but whether it was the preseason or whether it's that wheel route where he catches the touchdown, whenever he's on the field, I get that little bit of electricity from him. And I just think he's going to be a guy that at some point steps into the starter role of a very run-heavy and very effective run game. And I think Vidal's going to have one of those like crazy, maybe it's in their fantasy playoffs, he's just 4 games, but it's ultimately 20 points a week, something crazy like that. So I'm going Cedric Tillman. I'm going Kamani Vidal as my come out of nowhere. Do you have any other ones you want to toss out there?
I didn't get anyone down, but I mean, Blake Corum's one of my favorite stashes right now. I picked him up in multiple leagues where he was dropped. I mean, it's the same. He's not going to hit your roster unless Kyron Williams gets hurt. I mean, like, I don't know, like, obviously, like, as bye weeks and injuries pile up, like, you have to make roster crunch decisions, but like, why not continue to stash? Nothing's changed. You're only using him if Kyron Williams gets hurt, and he more than likely becomes a bell cow in that case. So I don't think it comes to fruition, but I mean, like, that's probably my favorite stash right now.
I think he's a great one in that same mold too. 2 guys I don't like. I think a lot of people are aware of Corum being a great stash, yet he's still only 11% rostered. I definitely think he is among the most elite handcuffs you could add. 2 guys that are only 3% rostered, but I think fit that bill of if the starter goes down would be potential top 15 running back. Kendre Miller sneakily leaped, and I don't like Kendre Miller. I've never been a big fan of the guy. But he kind of leaped Jamal Williams this past week, played far more snaps, 6 carries, 36 yards. Love the Gary Kubiak-inspired scheme with his son here, Clint Kubiak, the zone blocking, the marrying the run and the pass. I could see Kendre Miller, if something happened to Alvin Kamara, being a smash play. And then Dameon Pierce, as ugly as it is, I know his Houston Texans tenure has been very tumultuous. And since the new zone blocking scheme and Blobby Slowick came in, he just has not been all that effective. But Cam Akers has been shipped away. He's looked at least a lot more explosive this past year, that 50-yard touchdown run just 2 weeks ago. So Mixon, we've already seen him miss some time with injuries, aging back, getting huge workloads. Dameon Pierce is another one that nobody really seems to be sniffing around right now on those like best stash lists. We all know the Braylon Allens. We all know these exciting rookies that could be monsters. But I think Kendre Miller and Dameon Pierce could both be some real big stretch run heroes if something happens to the running backs in front of them, and they're aging veterans getting huge workloads. Pretty good people to target there behind Kamara and Joe Mixon. in my opinion.
I like those call-outs.
Sweet. Alrighty, Mo. Well, this is the last segment we have here, but I know you've jotted down a handful of guys. We've already talked about Hopkins, so we've got one of them crossed out here. And I know we're running a little long too, so we don't have to go too crazy on this one. But is there anybody else on my rest of season big board compared to you run the trade value charts? Everybody, make sure you go check out the trade value charts over at rotostreetjournal.com that my man Mo does each and every week. You can compare it to my rest of season big board and get a good sense of how you should value trades or who you should target for this guy. If you combine those two things, I think they're both two of the best free in-season tools you can use. But Mo, who are a couple guys that we are not valuing the same way, whether for better or for worse?
Yeah, it's pretty negligible or like just marginal. We got to get Tyreek Hill into your top 5 wide receivers, man. I mean, like 100%. You got him at, like, it's close. You got him at wide receiver 7, but I mean, like, Tua takes the field. Like, you just, I know you can do the exercise in your head. Like, every week he's in your side, your top 5. Like, every week, like, it's a no-brainer with this guy. I mean, I said it earlier, 22 points a game, like, across their careers together. Like, he's like a break fantasy type of guy when he's on the field with Tua. I think he's easily a top 5 guy. I've got him at 5 in the trade value chart. I don't. Like, you have any pushback, or like I feel like he's got to be a top 5 guy.
No, I don't have any legitimate argument other than I think as soon as I see Tua make it through this game and prove that he's still Tua, it just scares me so much. This guy with the concussion history that he has, the fact that, as Truth pointed out, he's not going to wear the skull cap. I'd love to just see him make sure it's still Tua. Like, if he comes out there and he looks woozy, looks wobbly, he's sailing throws, then I might have to just be like, okay, we got nobody for Tyreek this year. But I know in my gut they're going to hook up for like a 70-yard bomb this week, and he's instantly going to be right back in like my top 2 receivers, never mind my top 5. But I just need to see it one game before. That's why he's at 7. Fair. Like, he's right there on the fringe of the top 5.
It's not egregious.
Yeah. So, but no, I totally agree with you. Like, I have no pushback on the player and the fit once they're both healthy. I just need to see it once, and I'm going right up back in there.
I think you may have a personal vendetta against Devonta Smith, though. I think you got him at wide receiver 30 almost. It was outside like the wide receiver 2 territory. I think this guy is squarely in the wide receiver 2. I'm willing to throw out last week. Like, that's just a really ugly game. Jalen Hurts drops back, I think, 21 times to pass, like, and only ended up with, I think, fewer than 15 pass attempts. So I'm willing to throw out last week's game. It's just like an absolute shitter against the Giants, and just in terms of play volume and just game script. I mean, outside of that, I know some games without A.J. Brown, but I mean, he's like a top 15 per game guy. All of his per route metrics are really, really solid, even going back to the last couple of years. I mean, this is a guy who's a 1,000-yard receiver 2 years in a row, really, really strong offensive environment, solid matchups moving forward. It's just I think you should be looking to like, just, you should be high on everyone in this Eagles offense. Hurts, Saquon, A.J. Brown, and Devonta Smith. I think that there's room for everyone to eat, and I mean, we've seen him do it. We've seen him get it done in a week already with A.J. Brown. So I'm willing to throw out last week and scrap it just due to low play volume. So I think he's firmly in the wide receiver 2 ranks for me moving forward.
I mean, we've seen him do it with A.J. Brown this year, kind of. The 3 games are that dud last week. You want to toss it out? Okay, fair enough. I don't know that we can just completely toss it out, because this is a different offense than last year when Saquon is now a huge volume sponge, absorbing a ton of volume. But then, okay, let's look at the other 2 games he had without with A.J. Brown in there. 11.9, 13.9. Solid, decent, like, not bad, but kind of where I have him ranked, wide receiver 29 or so, like a serviceable wide receiver 2. And I just don't know that I buy, especially now that Saquon's here on this offense, that he's going to be much more than like a pretty good wide receiver 2 most weeks. So I look at my list here and it's like, okay, if you wanted to argue him versus Olave, him versus DJ Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, okay, I could see myself putting Devonta Smith over all those guys. I do him at wide receiver 28. But then once we get to like Jalen Waddle, Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, I just don't see how I could put Devonta Smith ahead of any of these guys given that, I just kind of think that in this rendition of the Eagles, he's more of a middling wide receiver too, is how I view him. We haven't seen any evidence otherwise, and we've seen that the floor can just completely crater out on him too. And we got a few more matchups with the Giants. We got a few more, like the Jags coming up. So I think the floor is, we just saw it, devastatingly low. And it's always going to be A.J. Brown. It's always going to be Saquon. And we got the third fiddle. And on the weeks where they need a third fiddle, we'll get 11 points. I don't know that I value that much more than the wide receiver 28 or so where I have him.
I think you bring up some good points. I don't know, just in terms of like looking to buy into this offense and just what I'm seeing from the
schedule is a great point though, Mo. Like I was just looking at like Hurts and him, and I mean it is littered with just green matchups after green matchups, and some of them do have that shootout style feel. So there are going to be some big days ahead. There's no doubt about it. Like I think there is a good time to buy Eagles in general. So maybe you can get, if the owner in your league is thinking about Smith the way I am, like you're going to get him cheap. But I just, again, third fiddle. But yeah, the matchups do look pretty good for a third fiddle to be meaningful too. So yeah, I could see this one going either other way, but I like where I have him. We'll see.
Yeah. The last one I wrote down was we got to get you more excited about Ken Walker. RB7 for the rest of the season moving forward. I think this is a clear-cut top 5 guy, just an explosive playmaker, a high-volume offense. I know that they're like the pass-heaviest offense in the NFL, but they've shown a willingness to get Ken Walker involved as a pass catcher, and I know a lot of it has come in garbage time, and I've wanted to kind of bring that up here and there, like as a reason why to not be so bullish on Ken Walker. But I mean, at this point, it's getting really hard to not just view this guy as a shoe-in top 5 guy. I mean, everything he's done is like just super, super exciting. Explosivity, usage as a pass catcher, obviously gets the goal line role. I think the offense is solid all around. I mean, they did regress here and there, but then they just steamrolled the Falcons last week. I do like their outlook moving forward in terms of just the general offensive environment. So I've got him at RB2. I've got him ahead of Derrick Henry. So I've got Saquon, Ken Walker, and then Derrick Henry. So maybe I'm too bullish putting him ahead of Derrick Henry, but my trade value chart is full PPR as opposed to half PPR. So I think that's like that's a slight knock to Henry there, and a bump to Walker 100%. I mean, Walker's seen 7+ targets in several games this season, so that's a pretty significant factor there. But I mean, I think you got to have him top 5 at a minimum.
And I really don't have much pushback on this one. I absolutely love Ken Walker. Like you said, the floor has been raised significantly based on the huge passing game involvement that I think a lot of people did not expect from him, and myself included. I thought I had him as my must-draft running back because he has a round 4 price, and I love this Ryan Grubb scheme, and all that's coming to fruition. But then the passing getting involved, he actually leads all running backs in routes per game right now, which is crazy. 8 targets in back-to-back games before last week too. I don't have anything against him. I really don't. Like he is in that top tier of running backs for me. I think there's 7 guys in there, and however you want to rank them, I do think Henry, I guess in PPR you could consider it, but I still think Henry has to be in front of him. I think Saquon has to be in front of him. But then, the way I have him is Breece Hall. I try to do it off the top of my head. I don't know if you have it pulled up right now, but I know I have Breece Hall, Joe Mixon ahead of him, just given the fact that he's put up 30 points per game when he's made it through a full game. I have, I think I have Kyron ahead of him. 90% of the snaps, just hasn't really been below 19 points in a game since last year. He's been rock solid. And there might be one other guy ahead of him. But if you wanted to tell me that he belongs ahead of Breece Hall, ahead of Kyron, like I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I just personally, there's a little more of a track record with those guys. I think there is a world where Charbonnet, he's mixed in a bit already. So it's just like, some of these other guys feel like they're much clearer. Like I'm 80% of the work every single week. Whereas like Charbonnet played more snaps last week than Ken Walker, even though Walker still had a huge day. I know he had the flu, and I get it. Like there's reasons for it too. But yeah, it's more so he's in that tier. And if you want to put him above any of those guys other than Henry or Saquon for me, I'd say you have a good justification. I love the player. I love the talent. Love how he's getting used. I love the overall play calm. I guess the only other negative I would say compared to some of those other backs, not that all of them have great lines either, but the Seahawks line is really, really bad. Probably bottom 5 in the entire league. and he's overcoming it. He's looking phenomenal. But compared to some of these other guys ahead of him, I think, especially when you look at like Derrick Henry again, like there's just I don't see any warts to Henry other than that he doesn't catch a ton of passes, and even then he just got a touchdown. He's getting more worked in than he has been before. Like really, only Saquon and Henry are the ones that I'd be like, nope, I'll never consider Walker over him unless those guys get hurt. But hey, I love the guy. Running back 2 is kind of crazy. I love it. Going out on a limb there. But he's awesome. He's an absolute smash. Like, he could go down as the fantasy MVP at running back should he keep this up and stay healthy the rest of the year.
Oh yeah, and it's really not that big of a difference. Like you've got Bijan as the guy ahead of him. Like my difference between Bijan and Ken Walker is like 8 trade value points. So like I've got them all like clumped together, and like you said, like it's not ridiculous to like order them in any particular way. So yeah, maybe I think it comes down to I'm just like super, super bullish on like just this offense as a whole. I love buying DK right now. If you've got a contending team that's got a strong record, I'm a big fan of Ken Walker, obviously, and just like what Ryan Grubb's bringing to this offense. So maybe it's just my bullishness on the Seattle offense as a whole. But yeah, I think generally on the same page, obviously very excited about Ken Walker and what he brings to the table moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm full aboard the Ryan Grubb trade too. I'm a big fan as well. So yeah, I fully agree. Buying all these guys, DK, if you can weather the couple weeks he's going to probably miss here with that knee injury, go for it. Fully into it. Would you trade? I got offers the other day. Would you trade Terry McLaurin for DK?
Easily.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought it was a no-brainer, smash accept, and I did. Yeah. I smashed the accept. And yeah, so just making sure I wasn't crazy. Like I was like, oh yeah, I can't accept this one any faster. So sweet. Alrighty. Did you have I know we had one banner here. I actually don't have something up. I can make something up real quick. Did you have a bold prediction you wanted to go, or do you want to just call it right here?
Yeah, I'll give it quick. Drake London is going to out over the next night. Like Drake London and Malik Neighbors both have 9 games remaining this season. Drake London will outscore Malik Neighbors by 50 points in those last 9 games of the season. So that's over 5 points per game more than Malik Neighbors over the rest of the season. Yeah, that's my bold prediction.
That is pretty bold. My God, as somebody that is heavily invested in Malik Neighbors here, I hope you're wrong.
Oh, me too.
But I do love Drake London getting that power slot, like Puka Nacua role, absolutely feasting. So I think that's an interesting one. I'm going to go out and say, I think one of the biggest storylines for the rest of the year will be, how do the 49ers evolve without Brandon Ayuk, who I know wasn't doing a ton or commanding a ton of volume, but anytime a mouth is removed from a Shanahan offense, it is a really important thing. And I'm going to say that Debo just goes on an absolute bananas stretch run and is a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy from here on out. So if you can capitalize on this pneumonia worry and maybe he misses this week, I think you go and do it. Now, Juwan Jennings, very interesting. He's one of those guys that come out of nowhere candidates. Ricky Pearsall, you could toss him in those come out of nowhere candidates. Somebody might step up other than Debo, but we just know Debo time and time again has been so explosive anytime he's been given work. So I'm going to say Debo goes absolutely bananas and carries this offense.
100%. 100%. I wrote about him as my trade target in the trade value chart article this week. Yeah, he's going to be a monster. If like the DK situation, if you've got a team with a good record and you can stomach a 0 or 2 for a week or two, yeah, go out and buy him right now.
And we got a super chat coming in. Will, thank you so much for your super chat. An interesting trade question here. Neighbors and Chase Brown for Debo and Hopkins. As we just talked about Debo going bananas down the stretch here. I know you're lower on Hopkins than I am. This is a tough one because this involves 4 players that I am very, very interested in the rest of the season. We alluded to the fact that we both think Chase Brown could end up becoming like the clear number 1 back here and going off down the stretch. But you're lower on Neighbors the rest of the year. So where do you land on this one, Mo? I got my take, but I would love to hear what you think. Neighbors and Chase Brown for Debo and Hopkins.
Well, I mean, I'm not low on Neighbors. I just I see an outcome where the Giants offense crumbles.
Yeah.
I'm still holding Neighbors though. I think he's a lock it in top 7 guy. And I'm holding Chase Brown as well.
Okay, so you take that side. I think I lean that side too. The only time I would say maybe not is if your running backs are wicked stacked and Chase Brown's just going to be on your bench. That's why trades are always hard to evaluate because it's tough to see the full roster. But if I am picking a side, like who scores more total points, Debo and Hopkins down the stretch or Neighbors and Chase Brown, I probably think Debo and Hopkins do. But I am higher on Hopkins than you are. I know that. I definitely think Hopkins has the biggest risk to be like the worst of this trade by a decent stretch. Whereas all the other guys, I see a lot of upside for down the stretch as well. So I'm going to go the Debo and Hopkins side of that one for sure. And my man Mo had to run out. So I'll start the mailbag for you guys here. We are running a bit longer than expected. So I'm going to try to move pretty quick through these, but I did want to make sure to get there. Thank you again so much for being here. Just about 400 of you here. Hopefully you found it valuable. If you did, please consider that thumbs up button. It would be so greatly appreciated as we move through these. Thank you, Will, for this. And you give us a little bit of your team context. So you have Nico, Higgins, Worthy as your wide receivers, JT Gibbs and Tracy as your running backs. So, I mean, I would probably, I think I pull this trigger too with the added context as well, Will, just because with JT and Gibbs, as long as they're healthy, you don't really need Chase Brown there. And so I'd load up on the wide receivers in that case too. Tough one though. It definitely is tricky. Let's go Wednesday stream. Let's go Tunes. Absolutely, indeed. Lomi, hope you're doing well. Good to see you, Lomi. I feel like I haven't seen you much this year. Should I trade away Pacheco and Jalen McMillan to acquire DJ Moore? What do you think, Mo? Jalen McMillan and Pacheco for Moore?
1,000%. Yeah. I don't think Jalen McMillan is like anything more than an emergency flex play. Pacheco, we talked about like how even if like he comes back, or I think he does come back, but I like eased into the offense, maybe not like holding on to a full workload in an effort to save him for the playoffs. Yeah, I think you make this trade.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I already talked about how I don't think we see Pacheco the rest of the year. If not, maybe the last couple of weeks to get his feet wet. So it becomes almost like Jalen McMillan for DJ Moore, and I like that deal. Yes. Chris Cheatham, even if Jennings or Debo play, do you trust Tillman more? I know I talked about Tillman being that breakout, come out of nowhere candidate, but I think we need to start seeing him come out a little bit more before I trust him over a Debo, or if Debo's out. I mean, we saw Jennings put up 46.5 earlier this season, the highest wide receiver output of the year, top 15 in the last decade. Dude's top 5 in yards per route run. I think Jennings is a baller. So, no, I don't trust Tillman more than those guys. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, no way. Yeah.
Tunes adding in, this is the year of the injury. Yeah, Mo kind of commented on that one too. Year of the injury, especially at wide receiver, as Tunes is saying, he lost Shaheed Godwin, Ayuk, so he's in trouble. Ayuk hasn't been doing much for you, but still brutal. And Tyler Sperry, I think we super chatted that one. You answered that one, both saying Ferguson was the guy for us. So trade Garrett Wilson and Mooney for Higgins and Cooper. I would definitely take the Higgins and Cooper side of this one.
Yeah, I would too. I've got T. Higgins and Garrett Wilson back to back in the trade value chart, and obviously taking the Cooper over Mooney's side of that deal. So yeah, I talked about why I was bullish on T. Higgins, and I'm taking that deal as well.
I think I'd put Cooper ahead of Garrett Wilson, including T. Higgins. So I think you're getting the two better parts of this deal. I know I see your squint there judging me on that one. But I'm telling you, Cooper's going to be better than Garrett Wilson here on out. I would put a little side action on that. Cooper versus Garrett Wilson rest of the season.
That's diabolical.
Cooper's going to outscore him. Adams is going to become Rodgers' boy. But yes, either way, Joseph, definitely take Higgins and Cooper over that. Coleman or McMillan long-term? I'll probably go McMillan here in terms of like if anyone out of this group of waiver wire pickups could just emerge and be like the guy. Edmonds going to be out till at least week 11. They're saying the bye week coming up there. Whereas Coleman, like he coming off a great game. I love it. Led the team in routes and whatnot. But we know that Cooper's role is just going to continue to elevate, and it's going to eat into everybody else there, including Coleman himself. Whereas McMillan could establish himself as that true number one in this offense for the time being. So I lean McMillan over Coleman. It is close though. What about you?
Yeah. So this is like, it's like how you philosophically approach like waivers and just like kind of this long-term stuff, especially on waivers though. I think Coleman is the favorite to score more fantasy points this season, but I think McMillan has like the greater, just like massive blow up upside potential. So I'm going McMillan and just like playing the lottery and hoping I hit the numbers right, because I don't think Coleman has a very high ceiling, but I think he has a safer floor just because of the offensive environment.
Mm-hmm. All right, there you go, Cap for life. So we're in agreement there. Eagles defense or Chargers defense this week? I definitely go Chargers. We've seen, I talked about this last night, Cap for life, and check out the stream from last night or the clip. I'm sure we have a defensive stream or clip there, but they get the Saints. Carr might be back, which would lessen them a little bit, but especially if Rattler's playing like 17 and 18 points given up the past 2 weeks, just abysmal overall on offense. And the Eagles get the Bengals this week. So I don't want to start the Eagles defense. I know they just sacked Daniel Jones 8 times, but this is a much different offense on the other side of things. So I'm going Chargers pretty easily. What about you?
Chargers easily. They haven't given up 20 points this year. They're like high up there in every defensive efficiency metric, and they play the Saints. Like Spencer Rattler. Like don't complicate it.
Don't overthink it. Yeah, absolutely. 3PC fail. Bo Nix or Geno if DK doesn't suit up. It's a good one because Bo Nix, I actually heard the stat today on the Establish the Run show where Bo Nix is like on pace for over 600 yards rushing and like 7 rushing touchdowns. Sneaky Konami upside to Bo Nix. So at first I would have chuckled and be like, it's just Geno. No way. Ryan Grubb's too good. This offense will keep humming. Bo Nix is legit, and they do get the Panthers this week. So if DK doesn't suit up, I mean, I'm trying to think off the top of my head who the Seahawks have this week. I can't remember off the top of my head. Do you know that one? I don't have all the matchups memorized quite yet.
Nah, I don't know who this is, but I mean, like, I'll just take it from here. It's easily Bo Nix. 6.3 points per game from rushing over his last 5, cleared 60 rushing yards in his last 2 games. The Panthers defense is giving up almost 300 yards per game through the air, 2 passing touchdowns per game through the air. Like if Bo Nix can get it together through the air, it's against the Panthers defense. I mean, like they were fried for 19.6 fantasy points from Marcus Mariota off the bench last week. Like this is a get right spot for him as a passer. He's like legitimately elite upside as a rusher over the last month or month plus, like over 6 points per game on the ground, doing it yardage wise and touchdown wise. So I think it's very easily Bo Nix here. And like DK is not suiting up, by the way. This is an absence from DK Metcalf this week.
Yeah, and they're facing Buffalo too. A good pass defense, one of the tougher matchups for QBs. I got to adjust my rankings, but I'm agreeing with you here. I like the Bo Nix take for sure. Do you pick up Fant for Freiermuth, I'm guessing you're saying here, or trade Daniel Jones for Jalen Tolbert, or do both? I don't know how any of these things are related here, Cap for life. I think I'd rather have Freiermuth now that Russ is kind of cooking here. I would rather have Jalen Tolbert than Daniel Jones. I don't know why Daniel Jones needs to be rostered other than 2 QB leagues. So I go Tolbert over Jones, and I go Freiermuth over Fant. What about you?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Like Fant, it's the highest passing volume offense in the NFL, lead the league in pass rate over expectation and passing plays per game. So like you're just playing the is he going to get 6 targets this week game? So like sometimes it'll get there, but I think I'm still going Freiermuth.
Yeah, and back-to-back weeks with 60 yards, though, for Fant, too. So it's worth considering. But, yeah, I'm with Freiermuth there. See what the Russ experience ends up being. What's up, Bulldog? He says, what's up, Legends? Good to see you, my man. Karush asking, start 1, Wandale, Tracy, Bigsby, or McMillan. This is definitely one where the settings do help. Like Wandale and PPR, we know it's a huge bump up. I lean Wandale if it's full PPR. If it's not, I do think we have a little more information to find out. Like, how do you bench Bigsby if Etienne is sitting after that humongous day this last week? So it comes down to Wandale or Bigsby for me, but it's all 4 options that are really near each other. I'm interested to know which one you go, Mo.
If Etienne doesn't play, it's definitely Bigsby. And if not, it's Wandale for me. Yeah, just like the floor with the targets. I mean, second in the league in targets. So, the ceiling's there with Bigsby if Etienne's off the field. But other than that, I think you just go with the floor of Wandale.
There you go. James O'Hare. I wonder if you know this guy over here, Mo. Asking, can Joe Mixon translate his first half success into second half fantasy success? And I personally see no reason he can't. The volume he's getting is absolutely insane. I know a lot of it is coming on big plays. The run game isn't looking all that consistent down to down, but if he keeps ripping these big plays, he's getting great usage as a receiver as well. I just look at it. The guys have averaging right now nearly 30 fantasy points per game when he's made it through the whole game, and I just think it comes down to health. That's really it to me. It's a big workload for an older back. So the only way I don't see it translating in the second half is if he gets hurt. But I also do think there's a pretty decent chance that happens at some point. But I think it translates. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't continue. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, Pop stays a Bengals homer here. Yeah, I don't really need to repeat anything that you said. We both got him inside the top 7. You've got him at 4. I've got him at 7. Yeah, just a high-end option moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Mountain Man saying, hey, boys. Hope everyone's having a good evening. Hope you are too, Mountain Man. Thanks for tuning in. Always great to see you. Thoughts on Cook and Bucky for KW3? 110%. I would do that without thinking. Twice. I like Cook. He's had some good games, but I think Bucky now in a 3-headed nightmare is going to be tough to trust ever. And James Cook seems to be trending the wrong way with Davis ascending. I don't think you think twice about this. You take Kenneth Walker, right?
Yeah, if this offer is sitting in your inbox right now, get off the stream and go accept that.
Definitely. Do not waste a single second. Make sure to hit that yes right now. All right, then we got, should I trade Jaden Reed for James Cook? Again, one of those ones where it's so tough to evaluate trade questions without the context of your team. I don't know if you have your trade value chart up here, though, Mo. How would you compare Reed and James Cook in terms of trade values?
Yeah. So like you said, at the end of the day, the trade value chart is just used as a guide. And the context of the team is crucial. But I've got Reed slightly ahead here. And I would honestly probably hold Reed and just follow the chart there.
Yeah, I have Reed a little bit ahead too in my rest of season rankings as well. So we agree there, unless you have a dire need for a running back and a lot of receiver depth, for sure.
Exactly.
Miami Dolphins are winning the Super Bowl this year. Is there a more delusional fan base than the Miami Dolphins? Love you, Andre Gabriel, but there's no way in hell. I won't make any promises. I don't want to do anything stupid on a stream that I promised to, and the Dolphins suddenly win a Super Bowl. But we can come up with a side bet where I'll do something nuts. There's no way the Dolphins even, I don't even know if they made the playoffs. Never mind win the Super Bowl. So no chance at all. Chase Brown or Tony Pollard this week, half PPR. I'm leaning Tony Pollard. We just saw the role last week, 89% of the snaps, almost 90% of the touches. And I know the final counting stats weren't incredible there, but that usage is just insane. And I think there's a good bounce back narrative this week. The Bills are a tough defense, not a great run defense, so I would have liked to see a little bit more from him. But I see that type of usage, and I love Chase Brown. I know he's been more of a timeshare back, so that's where I'm leaning with the featured back of Pollard. What about you, Mo, with this one?
I'm going Chase Brown. I'm chasing the efficiency and the game environment here. I really think that this could be a high-scoring one with Chase Brown getting a scoring opportunity or two. I just think Tony Pollard gets game scripted out of it against the Lions, within the first quarter and a half. By halftime, how many second half carries is he going to see? I mean, maybe he gets it done there on targets, but I would just chase the ceiling with Chase Brown, the efficiency, the potential shootout type of game, as opposed to potentially getting Pollard boxed out in the second half here.
Yeah, I mean, it's all fair points. I guess, though, with Tajay likely out, if Tajay plays, I fully agree because he takes on more of that receiving role. But we did see Pollard play, 80% of the routes last week, too. And if it becomes a negative game share, that's part of why I like him now is he's kind of game flow, not even game flow dependent. He can get it done in any type of script. So, yeah, interesting one. I do love the efficiency of Chase Brown. So I don't hate that. I don't hate that call at all. So we had Tyler Sparrow, you super chat that one earlier. I think we both said Ferguson on that one. Kate Otten or Njoku? It's 100% Njoku for me in this case.
Yeah, don't need to think about that twice. That's Njoku.
Yeah, he's I think going to be an every week top 4 tight end. Remember last year, second half of the season, he was the number 1 tight end of all of fantasy, and now he gets Jameis slinging it to him time and time again. Would you guys drop Pop Douglas for Pearsall? I absolutely would. Yes, in terms of a stash wide receiver 5, Pop Douglas may be a little more usable, probably not even. 40 ascending into more volume. I think that's an easy play there. This is not an easy play at all. You have to pick a keeper. Both are after the 10th round, BTJ or Bowers next year. I know we have a little bit more of the season to play out. I know next year, who knows what happens to Christian Kirk and the wide receiver core and who's the new play caller for we know it's going to be someone different other than Doug Peterson by this time next year. So there's a lot of unknowns, and I can't imagine you have to make this choice before the season ends. But if I had to pick today, I feel like I go with Bowers just because of how rare a good tight end is these days. BTJ, is so damn sexy too. So very tough call. But to me, I just go Bowers because I see I could see him being like the Gronk that's like a top 7 pick for the next 10 years. I'm gonna roll with the tight end, the scarcity there. What about you?
Oh, 100%. There's not that many tight ends who you can start like Brock Bowers functions as a top 20 receiver that you can start in a tight end slot. It's not much of a difference here or much of a choice here for me. You're talking to a guy who loves Brian Thomas Jr., super bullish on the talent, but just the difference that you're getting similar production, but you can start one in a tight end slot. It's just not much of a thought for me.
Yeah. All righty. Perfect. We're aligned there. Too bad you can't keep them both, though. That'd be quite a start to a draft to have BTJ and Bowers for after 10th round picks. That'd be amazing. We do have Daniel Caps. Good to see you, Daniel, asking, don't trust Murray, so should I go pick up Caleb or May? I like Caleb out of those two. I do love Drake May, too. 20 points in his first 2 games, both top 10 performances. Great to see, but Caleb's also really cooking, and his schedule looks real nice, including this week against the Commanders. So I like Caleb there. I play Caleb over Murray this week, too. What about you?
Caleb, just better offensive environment, easier path to consistent production, better talent in general, in my opinion. So, I think it's Caleb.
Sweet. Hi, I do need Puka or Nico to come back ASAP. I have to pick 2 receivers and 1 wide receiver tight end. London, Addison, Mooney, McBride. We shouldn't be asking about London. That's just too easy. So coming down to the remaining receiver, it is tricky because I probably like Mooney more times, but when I'm starting London as well, but then I look at this, this is they're facing Tampa Bay, and last time they faced Tampa Bay, Kirk Cousins threw for 500 yards, and both London and Mooney were top 5 receivers that week. So this is one of the weeks you can get away with double stacking them. Off the top of my head, Vikings, who they face this week? I got to double check that one real quick. I'm always been about this on Thursday. I've gone through the rankings a little more clearly.
The Vikings play tomorrow. They play tomorrow.
No, they face the Rams tomorrow, and the Rams suck. So I'm going to go Addison over Mooney in this case. Spread the wealth a little bit. Get London in. Get Addison in. I would play it that way. What about you?
Yeah, I don't think you can look into it's bench Mooney for sure for me. I don't think you can look into the last stuff against the Bucs at all. The Bucs aren't going to be keeping up offensively. Kirk Cousins isn't going to have to drop back to throw the ball 55 times like he did against them last time. It's a completely different game now. I don't think that 500 yards is within the range of outcomes. I guess I would have never said that about Kirk Cousins in a single game, but I don't even think he'll clear 300 yards in this game. I just don't think he'll have to. This is going to be a much different game environment than what we saw the last time these teams faced off.
Agreed completely. We got the figure report saying trade off Ferguson and Mostert for Etienne. I think you could have probably done better than Etienne. I don't know when he's going to come back. He's one of the bigger busts of the year. I don't think it's a bad deal because I don't love Mostert at all. I like Ferguson. I can see though when you have Bowers moving him, but I guess it's just why Etienne? He has done nothing this year, and it seems like Bigsby's only taking more. So I don't know. I don't love the trade. I think you could have done more.
Me neither. Trade value chart doesn't like it either. I think you could have gotten more.
I love it. Check out trade value chart at rotostreetjournal.com alongside my rest of season rankings for all you guys trading needs. It's all free. It's up there for you at rotostreetjournal.com. Trade Jaden Reed for James Cook. I think we might have got this one already, and we both said we prefer Reed unless your team needs really dictate that. Coach Zeke, thank you so much for the kind words. Loves the show. What a great live. Appreciate you always being here, Coach Zeke. bringing the positive energy all the time. 6-1, hoping on nice, great start to the year, my man, Coach. Would you trade Jettas and Diggs for London and CD? Not sure if they'd take it, but is that a smart thought process? So I look at that and I think, yeah, I probably prefer the CD and London side of things. I know you like London a lot, so I could see that. The one, non-analytical, non-trade value chart or anything, like if you're 6-1, your fantasy locker room's cruising. I always am worried about shaking things up and like, yeah, your team probably is better with CD and London over Jettas and Diggs, but like I've had these type of things where, yeah, I get my team better on paper and then the guy I traded for gets hurt, the locker room crumbles, and my team just goes down the tubes. Like it's one of those things you don't want to get too greedy, and Diggs is really impressing. Dell sucks. So yeah, in a vacuum, I do prefer London and CD, but I also see a 6-1 team that maybe might get a little too cute and shake up the locker room. So I don't know. What do you think about that trade, Mo?
I make that trade. Yeah. I'm really like CD and London are both inside my top 7, I believe. So yeah, these are two guys I'm really high on, and I don't really need to elaborate further. I make that trade. I mean, everyone knows how good both these guys are.
Yeah, those are certainly the two better options compared to Jettas, who's probably the number 1 option here. But I think the gap between London and Diggs is wider than the gap between Jefferson and CD. So yeah, I think you take it. But hey, the locker room vibes be damned. I don't know. I do put more stock in that than probably your normal fantasy analyst would. Truth, I was 100% with you all in on Tank. Yeah, I know he was one of your most owned receivers, wasn't he too, Mo?
It ended up coming down. Like I was just like directionally in on the Texans, and I ended up doing it through Tank and Nico and not very much Diggs at all, which ended up backfiring massively. So I ended up having more Nico than Dell, but I mean, like at this point, like, does it make a difference? Like it was right for a month, and now it's dead wrong.
I know, and Stroud sucks. Like that's something we didn't really cover tonight. Like, what the hell's up with CJ Stroud? Like I don't know. He's bad. Like he's legitimately not playing good. I know they're 5-2 or whatever, but they bad. Wade Reed. I've got Bijan, Jacobs, Chase, London, Flexes, Dobbins on benches. Cup, Chuba, Hubbard. Should I change anyone? I would. I'd get Cup in over J.K. Dobbins myself. Assuming he's playing against the Vikings tomorrow. Like I see a guy had 44% target share in his only healthy game. Still no Puka there. I think Cup's a smash. Especially as a blitz heavy team like the Vikings, like he's just going to get peppered tomorrow. So I think Dobbins is the clear outlier. The rest of that team, I don't know who you bench. Chuba for Jacobs, probably not with Bryce Young coming back. So yeah, I'm gonna make Cup in over Dobbins. What about you?
Yeah, I took this as like not necessarily like a week-to-week lineup thing, but like a long-term thing. Ship off Jacobs and Hubbard or Chubb for like a dog at running back. Check out my trade value chart, see where I've got these guys. Check out Wolf's rest of season rankings. Go get yourself a top 10 guy. I've got Jacobs as a fringe RB1 type of guy. I think Hubbard still carries some value with that RB9 ranking currently, and Chubb carries the name value. I think you can package them with Jacobs and ship them off for someone real strong.
Oh yeah, if you could do like a Hubbard and Jacobs and get like Walker or like Chubb, Hubbard, Jacobs even and get Walker, something like that, I would definitely. I think Hubbard's like the easiest sell. And a lot of people kind of recognize that, but like I think Bryce Young's going to come back, take over, just because
I've been counting that for weeks.
Yeah, definitely sell Hubbard while you can. Should I start Hopkins? I mean, Steven, depends on who the other guy is, so maybe, probably, but I don't know. My overthinking for the playoffs is have PPR and have Gibbs and Hall as running backs. Awesome running backs, Gibbs and Hall. That's insane. Again, yeah, if you could get London and CD for those other two guys, I think you're winning the trade. It's just a matter of how much stock you actually put in shaking up your fantasy locker room when you're 6-1. I actually do value that stuff, and I know most people would tell me I'm an idiot for it, but I have a lot in terms of vibes and stuff. I put a lot of that into it. Speaking of how Vikings are playing well with mid QBs, what happened to the Dolphins? We all traded Daniels to kill the Colts coming out of the bye. I don't know if it's hard to trust with Tua coming back, Bulldog. I mean, it is a risk. Like, what is Tua going to look like? Is it still Tua? I do think, if anything, though, like this has shown us. I know me and you are both lower on Tua, and fantasy-wise, I don't think we're wrong. Clearly, the guy got hurt. That was one of our big concerns. In addition to him always fading down the stretch, but I think a lot of people would have considered McDaniels one of those guys. So it's like, oh, you plug and play whatever quarterback. It's like Kevin O'Connell. Whoever's in goes off, and that's just not the case. I think he's a fake sharp. Not a big fan of Mike McDaniels after the stretch, but also I came out of the stretch with a lot more respect for Tua. Because of how well he's kept this offense afloat. Clearly, he's better than I was giving him credit for, too. I don't know. What are your thoughts? You trust your Dolphins right away? I think you do, right?
Well, I think it's first important to note that the quote-unquote fill-in QB is a lot different from Minnesota to Miami. Like, Sam Darnold was a top 3 pick not that long ago, and we're talking about Tyler Snoop Huntley, the most fraudulent Pro Bowler in the history of the NFL. Like, it's not like the same fill-in, plug-and-play type of guy. Like, and it's also a guy who had like the entire offseason to learn the system and everything. So it's a very different situation. But yes, I am 100% starting all of my Dolphins this week. I'm jamming Waddle and Hill into lineups everywhere. I've got Hill in the RSJ league, and obviously I'm starting him. Like, I don't really have much of a choice. So yeah, I'm jamming all my Dolphins into my lineups immediately.
Yeah, 100%. Tune saying you got Jennings and Pearsall on waivers. Is that too much, or do I see how? You think you definitely see how it plays out? It's the 49ers offense. I have no issue having both those guys on here and seeing, is Pearsall the real deal? Did Jennings, is his 45-point game a fluke, or is this guy the real? See how this plays out. Ayuk's out. There's going to be some targets up for grabs. I think there's nothing wrong with having both these guys.
Yeah, it obviously depends on what sort of roster crunch you're in, just the value of having both those guys. But yeah, I would be wanting to stash both those guys, and if I can get them on the same roster, why not?
Absolutely. Trade Achane and Dell for Hopkins and Waddle. I'm 3 and 4. My receivers are Dell and Shakir. Running backs are Hall, Kyron, and Achane. I would prefer the Achane and Dell side just because I think Achane's about to go nuclear down the stretch. I don't love Dell. But I think Achane's the clear best player in this deal, and I'd keep riding this out. Even though you do have good running backs too, but you can flex. Ideally you can flex one of them. So I keep the Achane and Dell side of this. What about you?
Yeah, I'd hold Achane. You're selling him at his floor. I'd be shopping around Kyron.
Yeah, absolutely. We are at the 2 hour and 5 minute mark, so I'm gonna. We still got a decent mailbag here, and as much as I want to move through all these and give you guys great answers, I'm going to quickly rapid fire through them. Mo, if you hear a take that you don't like and you want to add anything, let me know.
Yeah.
And I can kind of slow down.
Let's plow through this.
But let's plow through this real fast. So it's long-suffering fan. I can assure you the surprise of the Panthers shit show this year is absolutely for real. So yeah, they absolutely suck. Sorry, Charlie, it blows, but good to see you, Charlie, as always. Lucio, thoughts on trading Hopkins and Mason for Love and Pacheco? I'm 6 and 1, and the other side is 2 and 5 and has McCaffrey. I'd be going after McCaffrey. I wouldn't be going after Pacheco. I think he sits. No, I would not do that deal, Lucio, but I would try to go get McCaffrey as the 6 and 1 guy here. Cleve Raymond about to go off, says Uncle Ted. You know who we could have tossed out in that? Raymond maybe could have been that guy for complete turnaround, but I actually like Tim Patrick more. I'm a Tim Patrick fan. I think he's looked good as the big body Josh Reynolds type. And this offense, I think he's going to actually be the one you want here. But maybe it is Raymond. There's going to be volume up for grabs in the Lions offense. Who do you see grabbing the available volume with J-Mo out?
Well, did you not see the quote today?
What was it?
If Jameson Williams is from Dan Campbell, if Jameson Williams is out this week, I'm expecting Allen Robinson to play a big role in the offense.
Oh my God.
nightmare. But my pickup is still Tim Patrick. I'm going Patrick.
I like Patrick there too. No way it's Allen Robinson. Did trade for Devonta Smith last night, so hoping you're right, says Charlie. He's hoping you're right over there. Mo, we got Will Massey, one of the Truce boys over here. He actually is the one that outbid Truth on Henry. Love to see it. Will, rubbing it on in. I'm going to be honest, I didn't see him returning to prime level. I thought I made a mistake. Hey, there you are. Wish I got Etienne instead. Yeah, look at where you are now. You could not be more happy, I'm sure, that you have Henry over Etienne. I believe it was the second or third game where they finally started to really feed Henry. And yeah, that first week, I think there was a lot of fear. He had that early touchdown. They got game flowed out after the Chiefs. And it's like, oh man, is this going to be ugly? But no, they've realized how damn, it's just so good. How high can I sell Javonte Williams? I don't know. Probably not that high, but we have a rest of season big board. We have trade value charts. I would definitely sell him. I think this is one of the best games. He does get the Panthers this next week too, so maybe you wait for him to have one more great game in a row. But yeah, I would be trying to sell him. Realistically though, again, it's so hard to like assess what you could realistically get for him. I would just say look at the trade value chart, see who we have him ranked around, and then try to shoot a little higher, especially if he has another big game this next week. Is how I would play selling Javonte. Jaden Daniels doesn't play this week. Would you rather replace with Tua or Knicks for this week? I like Tua against the Cardinals, but I know you gave a great case for Knicks. Would you go Knicks over Tua though?
Yep, I would.
Wow.
Yeah, Tua needs 3 touchdowns to reach that weekly ceiling. Knicks can run for his life and run in the red zone to get it done. And we've seen it time and time again for the last month plus that he can get to 6 points on the ground. And I highlighted it earlier. This is one of the worst passing defenses in the NFL. Any defense or any quarterback can make them look bad, and I fully expect Bo Nix to do so.
We'll see. It's a bold call, but I like it. I personally do go Tua myself, though. I love the matchup against the Cardinals. D-Hop or Flowers? I got to go Flowers, so I see D-Hop going to get acclimated to a very complicated offense here. I know it's standard scoring, which I guess would favor a bigger body like D-Hop for touchdowns, but I still go Flowers, assuming he's healthy, though. We got to make sure he's fully healthy after that ankle injury. Do I trade London for Pickens and Jennings? No, I don't think so. I like Jennings a lot, but I don't think Jennings will be the wide receiver one as long as Debo's alive. And Pickens does look good, but I'm not gonna. I would be selling high on Pickens after this last week. He's still got Arthur Smith, and it's still Russell Wilson. Like, looked great this 1 week. I don't fully buy that at all.
London could be fantasy's wide receiver one, by season's end. Like, no, don't do that.
Absolutely. And Zeke wrapping us up saying, if you guys did a live in-person fantasy show like the Fantasy Footballers, I'd so be there. That would be awesome. That would be a blast. We actually do locally up here in Beverly, Mass. We hit a brewery at least once or 2 times a year and do a live show. It's been really fun. We've had, Campanelli came up from New Jersey. We've had people travel for the shows, and it's awesome time. There's a couple local spots we do typically hit a live show. So Zeke, if you are interested, truly, definitely message me. I can try to, we have flexibility with the brewery that we can kind of schedule it with enough notice to them really whenever we'd want. So if there is like a weekend where you're like, I would love to travel up to Massachusetts and see you guys, that would be great. I know Mo, you're in Ohio, so you might not be able to see our man, the Mo, but hey, maybe we can fly Mo out for the weekend too. That could be fun.
Maybe I appear in Beverly, Massachusetts for a weekend, just spawn into town and spend the weekend there.
That'd be a blast. That'd be great. So yeah, Zeke, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter, and maybe we can figure something out because that would be a blast. And we do typically do at least one live show a year. It's always a great time for sure. Alrighty, guys. Well, that was an awesome halftime show. The review of the mid-year. Seeing some new names out there. Would love to have you guys subscribe as we continue our climb towards 5,000 on YouTube. If not, hit that thumbs up button on your way out on YouTube, the heart button on Twitter, the likes, the shares, the retweets. It all does go so far to help us out. And of course, all of our content is at rotostreetjournal.com. You can find Mo's trade value chart, my rest of season rankings, and so many other great pieces. Liam's Dynasty deep dive every single week, weekly rankings, everything you need. It's going to be there. I will be live again tomorrow with my man, The Truth, with your usual sit start Thursday show at 6:30. Answered all the questions about how to have a good game. Excited for the Vikings and Rams. Some good fantasy upside for that one. Mo, anything you want to plug before we head out?
Yeah, go read Liam's Dynasty Deep Dive. I don't even play Dynasty, and I read it every week because it's very well thought out and put together. So go check that out.
Yeah, Liam's an absolute stud. I love reading his writing. He knows his stuff for sure. Awesome, guys. Well, again, everything's at rotostreetjournal.com. In a world full of fancy sheep, be the wolf. Later, guys. All right, end stream. I think you might have to. Nope.